The 53rd session of the Senate, in the third regular session of the 16th Congress, is hereby called to order. Our colleague, Senator Cynthia A. Villar, will lead the chamber in prayer. Senator Villar.
Let us pray. Our country is very blessed to have been chosen as the venue of the 51st International Eucharistic Congress held in Cebu from January 27 to January 31, which ended yesterday. To remember and keep alive the message of the just concluded Eucharistic Congress, let us together pray the IEC prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, our hope of glory, you are the fulfillment of the Father's plan to save all humanity. You are the mystery hidden from the ages and from generations past, now manifested to us. You abide in your church in the most holy sacrament of the Eucharist. As we celebrate the Holy Eucharist and receive your body and blood, grant us the awareness that your presence in us urges us to continue your saving mission in the world. Send us your Holy Spirit that he may lead us to walk humbly with the poor and the marginalized, in the company of Mary, your most holy mother and ours. O Lord, in the most blessed sacrament, to you be all honor and glory, and praise in the unity of the Father and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator Villar. Miss Liviana Angela Gonzalez Navarro, a multi-gold medalist at the 19th World Championship of Performing Arts, will lead the chamber in the singing of the Philippine National Anthem. Thereafter, she will render her own composition entitled Dalangin ng Kabataan. Miss Liviana Angela Gonzalez Navarro.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay, lupang hinirang, duyang ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bughaw, may dilagang tulat, awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning, ang bituin at araw niyang kailan pa may binamdidilim, lupa ng araw ng luwal, hati pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya ng pag may mga api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Nagsusumamot, nagmamakaawa na iyong marinig. Hinihintay ang katulad mo, ikaw ang siyang kailangan ko upang makamit ang pagbabago. Proses ng kabataan para sa bayan, kinabukasan kaunlaran ang siyang tangan. prinsipyo mo at yun ang tatahakin ko. Maghawak kamay at sama-sama tayo. Ngayong ika'y narito na. Pangarap ay abot kamay ko na. Dalisay mong mithiin, tapat na layunin. Pagsisilbi ang dakila mong hangarin. Pangako mo'y hindi magbabago. Sa isip ko at sa puso ko, ikaw ang panalo. Malasakit mo sa bayan, galing sa puso. Ulan, baha man o bagyo, itisusuungin mo. Pag-ibig lang ang sikreto mo, maging sa Diyos o kapwa-tao. Pilipinas, siyang kailangan mo. Ngayong ika'y narito na. Pangarap ay abot kamay ko na. Dalisay mong mithiin, tapat na layunin. Pagsisilbi ang dakila mong hangarin. Pangako mo'y hindi magbabago. Sa isip ko at sa puso ko, ikaw ang panalo. Pangako mo'y hindi magbabago. Sa isip ko at sa puso ko, ngayong ika'y narito na. Pangarap ay abot kamay ko na. Dalisay mong mithiin, tapat na layunin. Pagsisilbi ang dakila mong hangarin. Pangako mo'y hindi magbabago. Sa isip ko at sa puso ko, pangako mo'y hindi magbabago. Sa isip ko at sa puso ko, ikaw ang panalo.
Thank you very much to Miss Liviana Angela Gonzalez Navarro. Thank you very much for that beautiful rendition of national anthem and your composition. The Secretary will now call the roll.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Honasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
There are 16 senators present. The chair declares the presence of a quorum. The majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 52nd session, Wednesday, January 27, 2016, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none, the reading of the journal of the previous session is hereby dispensed with, and the same is hereby approved.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading proposed Senate Resolution 1723 on the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abductions.
Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to insertion into the record and journal.
The Secretary will do so.
Proposed Senate Resolution number 1723, resolution concurring in the accession to the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abductions.
Mr. President, copies of the measure as approved on second reading were distributed to the members of the Senate last January 28, complying with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I ask for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compania Ruiz, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Smeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Proposed Senate Resolution number 1723, which concurs in the accession to the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President,
Kyoto.
I move that we, with the consent of the Senate, we consider on third reading proposed Senate Resolution 1722 on the Kyoto Protocol, Mr. President.
In order.
With the consent of the body, may I request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to insertion into the journal and record of the whole text.
The Secretary will do so.
Resolution concurring in the acceptance of the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol.
Mr. President, copies of the measure as approved on second reading were distributed to the members of the Senate last January 28, complying with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Cayetano Pia, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Proposed Senate Resolution 1722, which is the resolution concurring the acceptance of the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, is hereby approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5571 on the Makati Electric Company.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5571, an act granting the Makati Electric Company, Inc. may co a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain a distribution system for the conveyance of electric power to the end users in the city of Lapu-Lapu and the municipality of Cordova, province of Cebu.
Copies of the measures approved on second reading were distributed to the members of the Senate last January 28, complying with the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compania Ruiz, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5571 is hereby approved on third reading.
With the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5583.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5583, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Masbate Community Broadcasting Company, Inc. under Republic Act number 7510, entitled an act granting the Masbate Community Broadcasting Company, Inc. a franchise to construct, install, operate, and maintain radio and television broadcasting stations in the islands of Masbate and Romblon, the whole of Visayas, and for other purposes.
Copies of the measure as approved on second reading were distributed to the members of the Senate last January 28. I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compania Ruiz, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill number 5583 is approved on third reading.
With the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5844.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure on third reading is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5844, an act granting the Avocado Broadband Telecoms Inc. a franchise to construct, install, establish, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems throughout the Philippines.
Having complied with the 3-day rule of the Constitution, I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Sumenya, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5844 is hereby approved on third reading.
With the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 6038.
Any objection, hearing none, consideration of the measure on third reading is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 6038, an act renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to Corona International Inc. under Republic Act number 7398.
Having complied with the 3-day rule, I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 6038 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 3785.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 3785, an act strengthening and institutionalizing direct credit support of the Land Bank of the Philippines to agrarian reform beneficiaries, small farmers, and fisher folk, further amending Republic Act number 3844, otherwise known as the Agricultural Land Reform Code as amended.
Having complied with the 3-day rule, I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 3785 is hereby approved on third reading.
With the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5417.
Any objection, hearing none, consideration of the measure on third reading is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5417, an act regulating the Philippine credit card industry.
I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5417 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 3092.
Any objection, hearing none, consideration is in order.
May the Secretary read the title of the bill, Mr. President?
Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 3092, an act promoting the creation of green jobs, granting incentives, and appropriating funds therefore.
I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
The printed copies were distributed on January 28, 2016. The roll call vote is in order.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 3092 is hereby approved on third reading.
With the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 772.
In order.
With the consent of the body, may the Secretary read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 772, an act exempting surviving children of military personnel who are mentally incapacitated from termination of benefits upon reaching the age of 21, amending for the purpose Section 25 of PD number 1638, otherwise known as the AFP Military Personnel Retirement and Separation Decree of 1979 as amended.
There being compliance with the 3-day rule, Mr. President, I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 772 is hereby approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 3091.
In order.
May the Secretary read only the title of the bill?
The title of the measure is in order.
Senate Bill number 3091, an act institutionalizing the nationwide implementation of the Jumpstart Philippines program and providing funds therefore.
There being compliance with the 3-day rule, Mr. President, I move for a third reading roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the third reading roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero-S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstentions. Senate Bill number 3091 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 3153.
In order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 3153, an act extending the life of the Human Rights Victims Claims Board, amending for this purpose Section 29 of Republic Act number 10368, entitled an act providing for reparation and recognition of victims of human rights violations during the Marcos regime, documentation of said violations, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes.
There being compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution, I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero-S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative
The
votes.
Minority Leader wishes to
Yes.
explain his vote.
The Minority Leader is recognized.
I abstain from voting.
All right. Record the abstention of the Minority Leader. 14 affirmative votes, no negative votes, 1 abstention. Senate Bill 3153 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move we consider on third reading Senate Bill 3090.
Any objection herein on consideration of the measure is in order.
May I request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 3090, an act amending certain provisions of RA 9574, otherwise known as an act strengthening, expanding the coverage of the special program for employment of students, amending for the purpose provisions of RA 7323, otherwise known as the special program for employment of students.
There being compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution, Mr. President, I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero-S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 3090 is hereby approved on third reading.
With the consent of the body, Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 2922.
Any objection? Hearing on consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 2922, an act creating the Philippine Trade Representative Office and appropriating funds therefore.
Having complied with the 3-day rule, I move for a roll call vote.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero-S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 2922 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 3024.
Consideration of the measure on third reading is in order.
May we read the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 3024, an act lowering the age requirement for applicants to take the board examination for social workers, providing for continuing social work education, and upgrading the sundry provisions relative to the practice of social work.
Copies of the measure were distributed, complying with the 3-day rule. I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero-S, Cayetano, P.S., Defensor, Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 3024 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 2582.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
I request the Secretary to read the title of the bill.
The Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 2582, an act regulating the practice of nutrition and dietetics in the Philippines, repealing for the purpose Presidential Decree number 1286, known as the Nutrition and Dietetics Decree of 1977, appropriating funds therefore and for other related purposes.
Mr. President, there being compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution, I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Company-Reyes, Cayetano, PIS, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Onasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 2582 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading Senate Bill 3034.
Consideration of the measure on third reading is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 3034, act mandating the provision of emergency relief and protection for children before, during, and after disasters and other emergency situations.
Majority
President, there's compliance with the Constitution, with the 3-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
The Secretary will conduct a roll call vote on Senate Bill 3034.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Company-Reyes, Cayetano, PIS, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Onasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 3034 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 1948.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 1948, an act establishing a multi-species marine hatchery in the municipality of Bantayan, province of Cebu, and appropriating funds therefore.
I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
There has been compliance with the 3-day rule. The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote on House Bill 1948.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Company-Reyes, Cayetano, PIS, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Onasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 1948 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 4432.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 443, an act establishing multi-species hatcheries in Surigao City and the municipality of Del Carmen in the province of Surigao del Norte, and appropriating funds therefore.
There being compliance with the 3-day rule, I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Company-Reyes, Cayetano, PIS, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Onasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstentions. House Bill 4432 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 4458.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
I move that the Secretary read the title of the bill.
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 4458, an act establishing a mangrove crab seed banks, nurseries, and grow-out production farms in the municipalities of Virac, Bato, Baras, Gigmoto, Viga, Panganiban, Bagamanok, San Andres, Caramuan, and Pandan, province of Catanduanes, and appropriating funds therefore.
There being compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution, I move for a roll call vote.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Company-Reyes, Cayetano, PIS, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Onasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 4458 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5645.
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5645, an act establishing a multi-species marine hatchery in the municipality of Lingig, province of Surigao del Sur, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there being compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution, I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Company-Reyes, Cayetano, PIS, Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Onasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5645 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5650.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
I move that the Secretary read the title of the bill.
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 5650, an act establishing a multi-species marine hatchery in Barangay Tahon Municipality of Nasipit, Province of Agusan del Norte, and appropriating funds therefore.
There being compliance with the three-day rule, I move that we have a roll call vote, Mr.
The
President.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero-S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5650 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5651.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
I move that the Secretary read the title of the bill.
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5651, an act establishing a multi-species freshwater hatchery in the Municipality of Babonga, Province of Agusan del Norte, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there being compliance with the three-day rule, I move that we have a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero-S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5651 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5652.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 5652, an act establishing a multi-species marine nursery in the Municipality of Calamansig, Province of Sultan Kudarat, and appropriating funds therefore.
There being compliance with the three-day rule, I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero-S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
16 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5652 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 6086.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May the Secretary read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 6086, an act establishing a multi-species marine hatchery in the Municipality of Sultan Naga, Dimaporo, Province of Lanao del Norte, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we have complied with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero-S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 6086 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 6085.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill?
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 6085, an act establishing a multi-species marine hatchery in the Municipality of Jose Dalman, Province of Zamboanga del Norte, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the three-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero-S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 6085 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 6088.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
I move that the Secretary read the title of the bill.
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 6088, an act establishing a provincial fisheries and aquatic resources training, development, and product center in each of the provinces of Leyte, Southern Leyte, Biliran, Eastern Samar, Samar, and Northern Samar, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the three-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero-S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Poe, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 6088 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 3220.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 3220, an act separating the P.O. Dalim Memorial School of Arts and Trades Tanglagan Annex in Barangay Tanglagan, Municipality of Calanasan, Province of Apayao from the P.O. Dalim Memorial School of Arts and Trades, converting it into an independent national technical vocational high school to be known as Tanglagan National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
There being compliance with the 3-day rule, I move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
A roll call vote on House Bill 3220.
Honorable Senator Sangara Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero Reyes, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Ngona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Smeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 3220 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 3223.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of House Bill 3223 is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 3223, an act separating the Conner Central National High School in Barangay Ili, Municipality of Conner, Province of Apayao from the Conner Central National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Ili National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, there is compliance with the 3-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S. Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 3223 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5406.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read only the title of the
The
bill?
Secretary is directed to read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 5406, an act separating the Kalinga National High School Ambato Tinglayan Annex in Barangay Ambato, Legleg, Municipality of Tinglayan, Province of Kalinga, from the Kalinga National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Tinglayan National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S. Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
14 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5406 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 5446.
5446. Consideration of House Bill 5446 is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 5446, an act separating the Governor Alfredo Abueg Senior National Technology and Vocational Memorial High School, Aribungos Extension in Barangay Aribungos, Municipality of Brooks Point, Province of Palawan, from the Governor Alfredo Abueg Senior National Technology and Vocational Memorial High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Inil U Taha National High School and appropriating funds therefore.
Copies of the measure were distributed. Complying with the 3-day rule, I move for a roll call vote. Mr.
Secretary
President.
will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S. Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
14 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 5446 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 3219.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 4219, House Bill number 3219, an act separating the Conner Central National High School, Talifugo, Annex in Barangay Talifugo, Municipality of Conner, Province of Apayao, from the Conner Central National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Talifugo National High School, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the 3-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S. Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Smeña, Pimentel, Paul, Rector, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
13 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 3219 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 3222.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 3222, an act separating the Conner Central National High School Cupis Annex 2 in Barangay Cupis, Municipality of Conner, Province of Apayao from the Conner Central National High School, converting it into an independent National Technical Vocational High School to be known as Cupis National High School, and appropriating funds therefore.
We've complied with the three-day rule, Mr. President. I move for a roll call vote.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
13 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 3222 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 4894.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 4894, na converting Villafuerte Peña High School in Barangay Ponglo, Municipality of San Jose, Province of Camarines Sur, into a National Technical Vocational High School to be known as Villafuerte Peña National Technical Vocational High School, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the three-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
13 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 4894 is approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 6131.
Consideration, any objection, consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the bill?
The Secretary will do so.
House Bill number 6131, Act providing for the establishment of a technical education and skills development center in the Municipality of Rizal, Province of Occidental Mindoro, to be known as the Rizal Occidental Mindoro TESDA Training and Accreditation Center, and appropriating funds therefore.
Mr. President, we've complied with the three-day rule. I move for a roll call vote.
Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, Alan, Peter, Compañero S, Cayetano P.S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Paul Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
13 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. House Bill 6131 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, I move that we consider on third reading. I withdraw my motion, Mr. President. That's all we have for bills on third reading. I move that we proceed with the reference of business, Mr. President.
Before we do that, can the Majority Leader consider the proposed Senate Resolution 1719, which expresses profound sympathy
Certainly, Mr. President.
for the late Democrito Mendoza?
Yes, Mr. President. With the consent of the body, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution 1719.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of proposed Senate Resolution 1719 is in order.
With the consent of the body, may we request the Secretary to read the title and the text of the measure?
The Secretary will do so.
Yes, Resolution number 1719, introduced by Senate President Franklin M. Drilon. Resolution expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolence of the Senate on the death of Democrito Mendoza, founder of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, TUCP. Whereas Democrito Mendoza, relentless champion of the Filipino working class, passed away on 12 January 2016. Whereas Mendoza dedicated his life as the resounding voice of our laborers in the continuing fight for equitable employment opportunities, humane conditions of work, and living wages through the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, which he founded and headed. Whereas his campaign for the causes of his struggling workforce transcended the domestic sphere and extended to the international arena through the establishment of the ASEAN Trade Union Council, which became his platform in advancing the freedom of association workers and in protecting the right of employees to security of tenure threatened by the rising trend of contractualization. Whereas as a pillar of our country's labor movement, Mendoza's notable contributions earned him various distinctions and citations, among which are the Labor Leader of the Year, Cebu News Correspondents Club 1961, Labor Leader of the Year, Cebu Press Club 1964, Labor Leader of the Year, School of Labor and Industrial Relations of the University of the Philippines 1998, Labor Leader of the Year, President Fidel V. Ramos 1998, Order of the Golden Heart, President Gloria Arroyo 2002, and the Presidential Merit Award 2005. whereas his unwavering commitment and legendary courage to promote the interest of our laborers through peaceful modes resulted to increased productivity in the workforce that ultimately helped oil the wheels of our economy. Whereas the members of this august chamber joined the nation in mourning the death of Mendoza, the distinguished victor of the working class. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate to express, as it hereby expresses its profound sympathy and sincere condolence on the death of Democrito Mendoza, founder and president of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, TUCP, resolve further that a copy of this resolution be furnished the bereaved family of Democrito Mendoza.
Mr. President, I move that we approve proposed Senate Resolution 1719 subject to style.
Any objection? Hearing none. Proposed Senate Resolution number 1719 is hereby adopted.
Mr. President, I move to suspend session in the meantime to allow senators to express their sympathies with the family.
This session is suspended to allow our colleagues to express their sympathy to the family of the late Democrito Mendoza and for the family to ascend the rostrum for the traditional photo opportunity. Session is suspended.
pa daw, wala pa daw pirma si Win. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
The session is resumed.
Mr. President, before we move on to the next measures to approve, may we acknowledge some guests in the gallery. We have with us Congressman Yoshifumi Moriyama of Nara, Japan, Mr. Nagabuchi, Mr. Nishida, Mr. Matsuura, Mr. Arakawa. We also have with us the Board of Directors and Officers of the Nutritionists Dietitians Association of the Philippines, headed by Ms. Virgith Buena, the Chair of the PRC, or Professional Regulatory Commission Board of Nutrition and Dietetics. We also have with us from the DFA, our new ambassador to Kenya, His Excellency Uriel Norman Garibay, our new ambassador to Malaysia, His Excellency Charles Jose, the new Philippine ambassador to Norway, His Excellency Dennis Lepatan, the ambassador to Chile, Her Excellency Lilibeth Deyapera, and we have with us also the liaison DFA Assistant Secretary Grace Relucio Princesa. We also have guests from the province of Batangas, Vice Governor Mark Leviste, board members Rosales, Bausas, Buted, Marino, Alvarez, Corona, Balba, Africa, Bolilia, Vertucio, Dolor, and Briones. I move that they be recognized, Mr. President.
We recognize the presence of our guests, and the Secretary is directed to reflect the presence of our guests in today's session.
Mr. President, move to designate the following as BICAM conferees on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 2951 and House Bill 6162. This is the Agricultural Competitiveness Enhancement Fund. Senator Villar is the chairperson, Senator Recto, and Senator Ejercito for the minority. So move.
Any objection hearing none, constitution of the Senate Bicameral Conference Committee to the said conflict, to the measures so mentioned are hereby constituted.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution 1720.
Any objection hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
Secretary will do so.
Resolution congratulating and commending Liviana G. Navarro for being a 5-time gold medalist and for bagging 5 plaques and 4 other medals in the 19th World Championship of Performing Arts WCOPA held last July 13 to 17, 2015 at Long Beach, California, USA.
Mr. President, I move that we approve proposed Senate Resolution 1720. For the information of the body, Liviana Navarro was the little girl who sang for us earlier.
Oh, yes. Any objection? Hearing none. Proposed Senate Resolution 1720, congratulating and commending Liviana G. Navarro for being a 5-time gold medalist and for bagging 5 gold plaques and 4 other medals in the 19th World Championship of the Performing Arts, WCOPA, is hereby adopted.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend session to allow the senators to congratulate the awardee.
Yes, the session is suspended for 1 minute, and the awardee is invited to come to the rostrum. session is resumed. The Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we consider the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the conflicting provisions of Senate Bill 129 and House Bill 4133. This is an act amending Presidential Decree 442 as amended, otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines, by adding a new Article 302A, reducing the retirement age of racehorse jockeys from 60 to 55, and House Bill 4133, entitled An Act Reducing the Retirement Age of Racehorse Jockeys from 60 to 55, amending for the purpose Article 287 of Presidential Decree 442 as amended, otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines.
Consideration of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provision of House Bill 4133 and Senate Bill 129 is in order.
Mr. President, may we be recognized as the sponsor of the measure and the chairman of the acting chairman of the Labor Committee.
The acting majority leader is recognized to submit the report to the chamber.
Mr. President, as a result of the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Racehorse Jockeys Retirement Act held last January 21, 2016, I have the honor to submit a copy of the Conference Committee report with the joint explanation on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 129 and House Bill 4133 as my sponsorship speech, and consider this read in toto into the record. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 129 and House Bill 4133.
Any objection? Hearing none. The Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 4133 and Senate Bill 129 is hereby adopted.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed to the reference of business.
The Secretary will read the reference of business.
Message from the House of Representatives. Letter informing the Senate that on 9 October 2015 it passed House Bill number 5601, an act extending to another 25 years the franchise granted to the Philippine Telegraph and Telephone Corporation (PTNT) to establish, install, maintain, and operate wire and or wireless telecommunication systems, line circuits, and stations throughout the Philippines for public, domestic, and international communication under RA 4161 as amended, in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate.
Committee on Public Services.
Senate Bill number 3133, an act commissioning a research on climate change drinking water adaptation by Senator Santiago.
Environment and Natural Resources Finance.
3134, an act requiring the concurrence of the local school board and the assignment of division superintendents, district supervisors, school principals, and other school officials, amending for the purpose Section 99, Paragraph D of RA 7160, otherwise known as the Local Government Code of 1991.
Education, Arts and Culture, Local Government.
3135, an act to promulgate a consumer product safety standard for its durable infant or toddler
Committee
product.
on Trade, Commerce and Entrepreneurship Finance.
3136, an act requiring used car dealers to provide consumers with a written warranty against defects and requiring private sellers to disclose any known use or safety defects.
Trade, Commerce and Entrepreneurship.
3137, an act authorizing local government units to apply the share of the proceeds earned from the development and utilization of hydrothermal, geothermal, and other sources of energy for electrification of other areas within the province where the source of energy is located, amending for the purpose Section 294 of RA number 7160, the Local Government Code of 1991 by Senator Santiago.
Local Government and Energy.
3138, an act requiring persons who may register as voters and present any proof of legal residence, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 8189, otherwise known Voters Registration Act of 1996, and providing penalties.
Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation.
3139, an act providing a probationary period of employment of academic personnel in private schools, thereby amending for the purpose Presidential Decree number 442, otherwise known as Labor Code of the Philippines.
Labor, Employment, Human Resource Development, Education, Arts and Culture.
3140, an act providing measures to enhance the acceptability of agricultural lands as security for loans obtained from lenders, banks, and other financial institutions, thereby promoting access to rural credit, providing mechanisms, therefore, and other purposes.
Referred to the Committees on Agrarian Reform, Justice and Human Rights.
3141, an act punishing various forms of smuggling, prescribing penalties, therefore granting incentives and rewards for assistance of witnesses and informants, leading to successful prosecution thereof by Senator Santiago.
Ways and Means.
3142, an act prohibiting a manufacturer from distributing personal audio players unless there is a warning label on the product which provides that it may cause hearing damage by Senator Santiago.
Trade, Commerce, Entrepreneurship, Health and Demography.
3143, an act providing for uniform standards of liability for harm arising out of general aviation accidents by Senator Santiago.
Public Services,
3144, an act prohibiting a person from knowingly permitting a motor vehicle owned or controlled by him to be driven by a person who is not authorized to drive under the law by Senator Santiago.
Public Services,
3145, an act requiring stock market instruction in high school education by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Education, Arts and Culture,
3146, an act providing for the establishment, testing, and evaluation of the strategic planning and performance
Civil
measurements
Service,
of government.
Government Organization,
3146.
Professional Regulation,
3147, an act directing the Secretary of Labor and Employment to award a grant to a public university to establish a Center for Study of Women Workplace Policy.
Labor, Employment and Human Resources Development, Women, Children, Family Relations and Gender Equality, Finance,
3148, an act establishing a marine debris research, prevention, and reduction
Environment
program.
and Natural Resources, Agriculture, Food and Finance,
3149, an act providing for accessory penalties for the crime of reckless imprudence committed while operating a motor vehicle by
Justice
Senator
and
Defensor
Human
Santiago.
Rights, Public Services,
3150, an act amending Republic Act number 6848, also known as Charter of Alamana Islamic Investment Bank of the Philippines, and providing for the regulation and organization of expanded Islamic banking system in the Philippines by Senator Paula Benigno Aquino IV.
Banks, Financial Institutions and Currencies, Ways and Means,
3151, an act amending Republic Act number 8439, otherwise known as an act providing a Magna Carta for scientists, engineers, researchers, and other science and technology personnel in government by Senator Paula Benigno Aquino IV.
Science and Technology, Civil Service, Government Organization, Professional Regulation,
3152, an act exempting from income tax the prizes and awards given to Pia Alonso Wurzbach as Miss Universe 2015 by Senator Rec.
Committee on Ways and Means,
Resolution, Senate Joint Resolution number 18. Joint resolution granting exemption from income tax to the prizes, awards, and other winnings of Miss Pia Alonso Wurzbach as Miss Universe 2015, introduced by Senator Recto.
Ways and Means,
Additional reference to business messages from the House of Representatives, letter informing the Senate that on 25 January 2016, it passed the following House bills, last House Joint Resolution, in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. 6197, an act providing for the regulation and supervision of payment systems.
Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions and Currencies,
6342, an act strengthening the right of government to expropriate lands for socialized housing, amending for the purpose sections 9, 10, 11 of RA 7279, otherwise known as the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992.
Urban Planning, Housing and Resettlement,
House Bill number 2988, an act declaring September 1 of every year as a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Hasaan, province of Misamis Oriental, in commemoration of its founding anniversary, to be known as Araw ng Hasaan. 5438, an act declaring October 22 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Rosario, province of Cavite, in commemoration of its founding anniversary. 5453, an act declaring June 27 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of El Salvador, province of Misamis Oriental, in commemoration of its city charter day anniversary, to be known as Araw ng El Salvador. 5474, an act declaring July 1 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Balubihid, province of Misamis Oriental, in commemoration of its founding anniversary, to be known as Araw ng Alubihid. 6177, an act declaring March 26 of every year special non-working holiday in the city of Las Piñas, in commemoration of its founding anniversary, to be known as Las Piñas Charter Day. 6231, an act declaring March 17 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Tayug, province of Pangasinan, in commemoration of the feast day of its patron saint, Saint Patrick of Ireland, to be known as the municipality of Tayug Day. 6343, an act declaring July 22 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Claveria, province of Misamis Oriental, in commemoration of its founding anniversary, to be known as Araw ng Claveria. 6344, an act declaring August 2 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of Butuan, in commemoration of its city charter day anniversary, to be known as Adlaw Hong Butuan. 6345, an act declaring April 5 of every year a special non-working holiday in the province of Pangasinan, to be known as the Pangasinan Day. 6351, an act declaring November 23 of every year a special non-working holiday in the province of Maguindanao, in commemoration of the 2009 Maguindanao Massacre. 6352, an act declaring June 28 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Brooks Point, province of Palawan, in commemoration of its Foundation Day anniversary. 6353, an act declaring December 1 of every year a special working holiday in the entire province of Pampanga, including Angeles City, and a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Arayat, province of Pampanga, to be known as General Jose M. Alejandrino Day. 6354, an act declaring May 15 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Quezon, province of Palawan, in commemoration of its Foundation Day anniversary. 6355, an act declaring March 31 of every year a special non-working holiday in the whole province of Southern Leyte, in commemoration of the first Mass held in Limasawa Island, province of Southern Leyte, to be known as the First Mass Day. 6356, an act declaring November 10 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of President Quirino, province of Sultan Kudarat, in commemoration of its Foundation Day anniversary. 6357, an act declaring March 21 of every year a non-working holiday in the municipality of San Fabian, province of Pangasinan, in commemoration of its founding anniversary. 6358, an act declaring May 5 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Kapangan, province of Benguet, in commemoration of the birth anniversary of its declared municipal hero, the Honorable Bado Dangwa. 6359, an act declaring September 21 of every year a special working holiday in the cities and province of Cebu, including all its highly urbanized and component cities, to be known as the Cebu Press Freedom Day. And House Bill number 6365, an act declaring December 16 of every year as the Sendong Memorial and Disaster Preparedness Day in Cagayan de Oro City and Iligan City.
Referred to the Committee on Local Government.
6316, an act extending the deadline for compliance with the requirements of the Commission on Higher Education for conversion into a state university, thereby amending Republic Act number 10585, entitled An Act Converting the Cotabato City State Polytechnic College in Cotabato City into a state university, to be known as Cotabato State University, and appropriating funds therefore. And House Bill number 6350, an act extending the deadline for compliance with the requirements of the Commission on Higher Education for conversion into state university, thereby amending Republic Act number 10596, an act converting the Mindoro State College of Agriculture and Technology in the municipality of Victoria, province of Oriental Mindoro, into a state university, to be known as the Mindoro State University, MINSU, and appropriating funds therefore.
Committees on Education, Arts and Culture.
6337, an act providing for the apportionment of the province of Southern Leyte into 2 legislative districts. House Bill number 6338, an act separating the city of Malolos from the first legislative district of the province of Bulacan to constitute the lone legislative district of the city of Malolos. And House Bill number 6339, an act creating Barangay Upper Pugaan in the municipality of Bitsaan Ramay, province of Lanao del Sur.
What about House Bill 6337? Did the Secretary read that?
Yes, sir.
Did you? Okay. Okay. All House Bill 6337, 6338, and 6339 are all referred to the Committee on Local Government, Electoral Reforms, and People's Participation.
House Joint Resolution number 38, Joint Resolution ordaining a glossary of significant housing terminologies for adherence by the key shelter agencies, other appropriate agencies of government, and other housing and urban development stakeholders.
To the Committee on Urban Planning, Housing, and Resettlement.
Letters from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 25 January 2016, it designated Representative Sarmiento Villarda Jr., Coa, Olivares, Belmonte, and Tejada as its conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 5911, an act requiring the mandatory installation of a speed limiter and public utility in certain types of vehicles, and Senate Bill number 2999, an act mandating the installation of speed limiters and setting speed limits for public utility buses and for other purposes. Representatives Kimbo, Garin, Abu, Benitez, Romulo, Ferrer, Banal, and Ridon as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 5713, an act further amending Section 109 of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, and for other purposes, and Senate Bill number 2987, an act amending Section 109A and F of the National Internal Revenue Code as amended, by RA 9337 and for other purposes. Representatives Relampagos, Garin, Alvarez, Lanete, Nuel, and Angare Castillo as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Bill Number 5299, an act providing for the development and promotion of farm tourism in the Philippines, and Senate Bill 3002, an act providing for the development and promotion of farm tourism in the Philippines and for other purposes. Representatives Benitez, Bagatsing, Mercado, Revilla, Gutierrez, Batocabe, Revilla, Belmonte, and Cayetano, its conferees, the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Bill Number 4116, an act strengthening the Balanced Housing Development Program amending for the purpose, Republic Act Number 7279, entitled an act to provide for a comprehensive and continuing urban development and housing program, establish the mechanism for its implementation and for other purposes, and Senate Bill Number 2947, an act strengthening the Balanced Housing Development Program amending for the purpose, Republic Act Number 7279 as amended by Republic Act Number 9397, otherwise known as the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992.
To the Committee on Rules.
Letters from the House informing the Senate that on 25 and 26 January 2016, it adopted Senate Bill Number 2767 as an amendment to House Bill Number 5276, an act increasing the bed capacity of Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center in Cebu City from 800 to 1,200 beds, and appropriating funds therefore amending for the purpose, Republic Act Number 8658, entitled an act increasing the bed capacity of Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center located in Cebu City from 400 to 800 bed capacity and appropriating funds therefore. And Senate Bill Number 2178 as an amendment to House Bill Number 5412, an act making election service non-compulsory for public school teachers, providing for compensation and other benefits.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 25 January 2016, it concurred with the Senate amendments to following House bills. House Bill Number 103, an act declaring June 23 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of Bacoor to commemorate its anniversary as a city. 3945, an act declaring July 4 of every year a special non-working holiday in the province of Lanao del Sur in commemoration of its Foundation Day. 3962, an act declaring April 16 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of Marikina in commemoration of its founding anniversary to be known as Marikina City Day. 3964, an act declaring March 9 of every year a special non-working holiday in the province of Abra in commemoration of its foundation anniversary and the culmination of Abrenian Kawayan Festival. 3968, an act declaring June 21 of every year a special non-working holiday in Tagaytay City, province of Cavite, in commemoration of its Foundation Day, to be known as the Charter Day of Tagaytay City or Araw ng Lungsod ng Tagaytay. 3969, an act declaring June 30 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of Imus, province of Cavite, in commemoration of its founding anniversary. 3973, an act declaring September 29 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of Bacoor, province of Cavite, in commemoration of the Araw ng Bacoor. 4645, an act declaring May 8 of every year as Hermosa Day and special non-working public holiday in the municipality of Hermosa, province of Batanes. And 4646, an act declaring December 29 of every year special non-working holiday in the municipality of Leon, province of Iloilo, in honor of Captain Jose Calugas Sr. to be known as Jose Calugas Day. 4797, an act declaring October 31 of every year special non-working holiday in the municipality of Porac, province of Pampanga, in commemoration of its founding anniversary to be known as Porac Day. 4798, an act declaring August 11 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of Ilagan, province of Isabela, in commemoration of its Charter Day anniversary to be known as Ilagan City Charter Day. 4799, an act declaring September 1 of every year a special non-working holiday in the province of North Cotabato, in commemoration of its founding anniversary. 5552, an act declaring February 13 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of Parañaque, Metro Manila, in commemoration of its Foundation Day anniversary. 1246, an act establishing a satellite office in the Land Transportation Office of LTO in the municipality of Irosin, Sorsogon, and appropriating funds therefore. 2028, an act establishing a land transportation office, district and office in the city of Antipolo, province of Rizal, and appropriating funds therefore. 2606, an act establishing a district office of the land transportation office in the municipality of La Libertad, province of Negros Oriental, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. 2716, an act converting the land transportation office, extension office located in the city of Cabadbaran, Agusan del Norte, into a regular LTO district office and appropriating funds therefore. 3217, an act converting the Cabacan Land Transportation Office, extension office in the municipality of Cabacan, province of Cotabato, into a regular LTO district office. 4421, an act establishing a land transportation office in the municipality of Malita, province of Davao Occidental, and appropriating funds therefore. 4784, an act converting the land transportation office, extension office located in the city of Tagaytay, province of Cavite, into a regular district office and appropriating funds therefore. And House Bill number 5085, an act converting the Goa Camarines Sur extension office of the land transportation office into a regular LTO Class D district office to be located in the municipality of Tigawan, province of Camarines Sur.
To the archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate on 26 January 2016. It designated Representative Abu as the additional conferee to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Bill 4116, an act strengthening the Balanced Housing Development Program and amending for the purpose. Republic Act number 7279, entitled An Act to Provide for a Comprehensive and Continuing Urban Development and Housing Program, establish the mechanism for its implementation and for other purposes. And Senate Bill number 2947, an act strengthening the Balanced Housing Development Program, amending for the purpose RA 7279 as amended by RA 9397, otherwise known as the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992.
Committee on Rules.
Communications letter from the Department of Trade and Industry submitting to the Senate its report on the implementation of RA number 9178 of Barangay Micro Business Enterprises Act of 2002.
Committee on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship.
Letter from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas submitting to the Senate report to Congress on public sector/publicly guaranteed private sector foreign loans approved by the BSP in the fourth quarter of 2015 and entire 2015 pursuant to Section 20, Article 7 of the Constitution.
Economic Affairs and Finance.
Committee reports. Committee report number 443 submitted jointly by the Committees on Environment and Natural Resources and Tourism on House Bill number 6152, introduced by Representative Abad, an act declaring the province of Batanes as a responsible, community-based cultural heritage and ecotourism zone, recommending its approval with amendments taking into consideration Senate Bill number 2981, sponsored Senators Escudero and Ligarda.
Calendar for Ordinary Business.
444 submitted jointly with the Committees on Electoral Reform and People's Participation and Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes on Senate Bill number 1224, introduced by Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito, an act identifying other persons criminally liable for election offenses and increasing the penalties for election-related offenses, amending sections 263 and 264 of Batas Pambansa Bilang 881 as amended, or the Omnibus Election Code of the Philippines and Section 46 of RA 8189, or the Voters Registration Act of 1996 and for other purposes, recommending its approval with amendments taking into consideration House Bill number 4111, by Senator Pimentel, sponsor.
Calendar for Ordinary Business. The Majority Leader is recognized.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders the following: House Bill 1374 under Committee Report 435, House Bill 3145 under Committee Report 436, House Bill 5620 under Committee Report 437, House Bill 5621 under Committee Report 438, and House Bill 5632 under Committee Report 439.
Consideration of the measures is in order.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we consider on second reading under one omnibus sponsorship the House bills enumerated as reported out under the respective committee reports.
Consolidated sponsorship speech for the bills under consideration is in order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the titles of the proposed bills without prejudice to inserting into the record the whole texts thereof.
The Secretary will do so.
Move
House Bill number 1374, an act creating 2 additional branches of the Regional Trial Court in the province of Leyte to be stationed in the city of Barumok, amending for the purpose Section 14, Paragraph I of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judicial Organization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill number 3145, an act creating an additional Regional Trial Court branch to be stationed in Calapan City and an additional Municipal Trial Court branch to be stationed in the municipality of Baco, all in the 1st District of Oriental Mindoro, further amending for the purpose Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as Judicial Organization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill number 5620, an act creating additional branch of the RTC in the 3rd Judicial Region to be stationed in the municipality of Iba, province of Zambales, further amending for the purpose Section 14, Paragraph C of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Organization of 1980 is amended, appropriating funds therefore. House Bill number 5621, an act creating 3 additional branches of the RTC in the province of Laguna to be stationed in Calamba City, amending for the purpose Section 14E of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Organization Act of 1980 is amended, appropriating funds therefore. House number 5632, an act creating 2 additional branches of the Metropolitan Trial Court in the National Capital Judicial Region to be stationed in Malabon City, Metro Manila, amending for the purpose Section 27 of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 is amended, and appropriating funds therefore.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Pimentel to deliver an omnibus sponsorship speech for all the House bills enumerated.
Senator Pimentel is recognized to deliver an omnibus sponsorship speech for the House bills under consideration.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Chairman of the Committee on Justice and Human Rights, this representation humbly submits for consideration the following 5 measures about creation of courts. House Bill number 1374 under Committee Report 435. House Bill number 3145 under Committee Report 436. House Bill number 5620 under Committee Report number 437. House Bill number 5621 under Committee Report number 438. And House Bill number 5632 under Committee Report 439. The great civil rights advocate Martin Luther King Jr., while incarcerated in a Birmingham jail decades ago, famously decried that justice delayed is justice denied. Sadly, Mr. King's words, which are probably a critique on the administration of justice during his time, still very much resonate to this day with the plight of many Filipinos whose cases have long languished or are still languishing in our courts, some of them while being in jail. That our courts are inundated with cases, regardless of merit, is an incontrovertible reality. In fact, it is common to see stacks of case files finding their way into the corridors of our courts simply because they could not keep up with the volume of cases that are brought for their disposition. With rapid development and increasing human activity, it is almost certain that the number of legal conflicts will only steadily increase in the coming years. While the members of our judiciary are some of the most brilliant, professional, and diligent luminaries in the legal community, the sheer volume of their caseload sometimes render it impossible for them to resolve these cases judiciously and with dispatch. An overview of the caseload in the courts covered by the House bills that I have mentioned earlier shows the unfortunate state of affairs. To illustrate, the Regional Trial Court in Calapan City, Oriental Mindoro, for which there are 2 branches, has a total caseload of 1,620 cases as of December 2013. This equates to a caseload of 810 per branch, which is 510 cases over the manageable caseload for second-level courts, which the court administrator has fixed at 300 cases per branch. And the creation of the Calapan courts is the subject matter of House Bill number 3145. The Regional Trial Court in Ormoc City, Leyte, for which there are 2 branches, has a total combined caseload of 1,637 as of February 2015. This translates to an almost similar average caseload of 819 per branch, and again exceeds the manageable caseload of 300 for second-level courts by almost 519 cases per branch. So, Ormoc. The creation of courts in Ormoc is the subject matter of House Bill number 1374. The Regional Trial Court in Iba, Zambales, for which there are 3 branches, has a total combined caseload of 1,700 as of March 2015. This yields an average caseload of 567 per branch and is in excess of the manageable caseload by almost 267 cases per branch. The creation of additional courts in Zambales is a subject matter of House Bill number 5620. The Regional Trial Court in Calamba City, Laguna, for which there are 5 branches, has a total combined caseload of 4,380 as of March 2015. This equates to an average caseload of 876 per branch, which is more than double the manageable caseload of 300 cases per branch. The creation of courts in Calamba City is a subject matter of House Bill number 5621. The Metropolitan Trial Court in Malabon City, for which there are 2 branches, has a total combined caseload of 2,031 as of March 2015. This translates to an average caseload of 1,015 per branch and exceeds the manageable caseload of 500, which is the number fixed for first-level courts. And the excess is by a staggering 515 cases per branch. The creation of courts in the city of Malabon is a subject matter of House Bill number 5632. So in a society that looks upon the judiciary as the bulwark of rights and liberties, it is imperative that we establish the correct and sustainable infrastructure to guarantee that our people are able to obtain redress in a speedy and efficient manner. Given this overriding consideration, I am hereby endorsing House Bills numbers 1374, 3145, 5620, 5621, and 5632, which seek the establishment of additional branches in the first and second level courts in the city of Malabon, city of Calapan, city of Calamba, the province of Zambales, and the province of Leyte, respectively, which we foresee will help declog their dockets and speed up the administration of justice in these areas. I wish to emphasize that in establishing these additional courts, we took into consideration not only the present case volume of existing branches, but also the geographical situation of this area so that we can link the courts to our people and thus make our judicial processes more accessible. These additional courts, therefore, will not serve as mere ornaments or political accommodations, but as tangible solutions to the pressing issues confronting our justice system. With the passage of these bills, it is my hope that soon no Filipino will be denied justice simply due to the delay in the disposition of their cases. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President and my colleagues.
Thank you, Senator Pimentel. The Majority Leader is recognized.
Mr. President, to give our colleagues time to study the measures, I move that we suspend all the measures under consideration. So move.
In objection, hearing none, consideration of the House Bill 1374, 3145, 5620, 5621, and 5632 is hereby suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2239 under Committee Report 32. This bill pertains to the proposed closed caption broadcasting of television programs.
In objection, hearing none, in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measures that we are in the period of interpellations, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Grace Poe.
Senator Grace Poe is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Allow me to introduce the following amendments. The following addresses the concerns of Senate President Drilon and Senator Soto on our... Okay. So wala na. Oh, sige.
Mr. President, there are no members who have signified their intent to interpolate. I move that we close the period of interpellations.
The period for interpellation is hereby terminated.
I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
The period for committee amendments is in order.
I move that Senator Poe be recognized for the committee
Senator
amendments.
Poe is recognized for the period of committee amendments.
Individual.
There are no committee amendments, Mr. President. I move that we close the period for committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period for individual amendments.
Period for individual amendments is in order.
I believe Senator Poe has a number of amendments. I move that
Senator
she
Poe is
be
recognized.
recognized.
Allow me to introduce the following amendments addressing the concerns of Senate President Drilon and Senator Soto on our bill. Number 1, on page 1, lines 1 to 4, delete the sentence starting with the word all and ending with programs, and in lieu thereof, replacing it with the following. All franchise holders or operators of television stations and producers of television programs are required to provide closed captions option in the broadcast of their programs, including newscasts, news programs, and pre-scripted programs. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Number 2, on the second page, line 8, after the word business, insert the word who knowingly and willfully voted or assented or acted with bad faith and gross negligence to the unlawful act punishable under this act. Thus, the second paragraph of Section 4 will now read as, in case the offender is a corporation, partnership, or association, or any other juridical person, the president, manager, administrator, or person in charge of the management of the business who knowingly and willfully voted or assented or acted with bad faith and gross negligence to the unlawful act punishable under this act shall be liable therefor. In addition, the license or permit to operate its business shall be canceled. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Number 3, on page 2, lines 11 and 12, transpose phrase the National Telecommunications Commission and insert the phrase in line 13 after the word with, the letter T in the word the, just before the word movie, shall then be capitalized. I so move, Mr. President.
Can the sponsor read now the provision as amended, just for the record? This is Section 5.
The Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, in consultation with the National Telecommunications Commission and other concerned agencies and entities, shall promulgate the necessary rules and regulations within 120 days from the effectivity of this Act, including guidelines on applications of exemption, system of warnings, penalties and appeals, and monitoring and compliance.
Any objection to the provision as read? Hearing none, approved.
And the last, on the same page, line 15, after the word act, insert a comma and the phrase, including guidelines on applications of exemption, system of warnings, penalties and appeals, and monitoring and compliance. Hence, Section 5 will now read as follows. The Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, in consultation with the National Telecommunications Commission and other concerned agencies and entities, shall promulgate the necessary rules and regulations within 120 days from the effectivity of this Act, including guidelines and applications of exemption, system of warnings, penalties and appeals, and monitoring compliance. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Mr.
President, there are no other individual amendments. I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
Before that, may the chair ask our sponsor to please read again Section 1 of the bill as amended. Can the sponsor please read it again? The chair is a little concerned about a certain wording here.
Okay. Section 1,
Yes, please.
it says, all franchise holders...
It's requirement. Is the requirement still a... is the word requirement deleted, Madam Sponsor?
It says are required to provide closed captions option.
Okay. No, on line 1, after section 1, in the original bill, there appears to be a subtitle which says, quote, requirement, close quote. Is that retained or deleted?
It's retained, sir.
It's retained. So please, can you please read the provision as it now reads for the record?
One minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspended.
Mr. President,
Please, session is resumed.
we're just going to add the lines, Mr. President, that says Section 1 requirement.
Please proceed. Please read it.
So it will say, Section 1 requirement. All franchise holders or operators of television stations and producers of television programs are required to provide closed captions option in the broadcast of their programs, including newscasts, news programs, and pre-scripted programs.
All right. So we deleted the phrase, but not limited to, just to confirm.
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, there being no other individual amendments, I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
Period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading the said measure.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill number 2239
Congratulations.
under Committee Report number 32 is hereby approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of the bill in the meantime. Mr.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill 5511 under Committee Report 351. This bill pertains to the proposed Mimaropa Act, Mr. President.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
The parliamentary status, Mr. President, is that the sponsor delivered his sponsorship speech last January 19. I move that we open the period of interpellations.
Period for interpellation is in order.
I move that we move to suspend for 1 minute, Mr. President.
Session is suspended for 1 minute. Wala ka namang sponsor.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator J.V. Ejercito to sponsor the measure.
Is this for sponsorship?
Sorry, in the period of interpellations, Mr. President. I stand corrected.
Consideration of the measure is, the period for interpellation is in order. Senator J.V. Ejercito, the sponsor of the measure, is recognized.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President, but nobody registered for interpellations, Mr. President.
Same with the Rules Committee. No member has signified their intent to interpellate. I move that we close the period of interpellations, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. The period for interpellation on House Bill 5511 under Committee Report 351 is hereby terminated.
I move that we open the period of committee amendments, Mr.
Period
President.
for committee amendments is in order.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President. Under Section 2 on page 1, line 3, after the word promote, delete the following: simplicity, economy, and.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
And on the same section, on the same page, on line 5, place a period after the word development.
Approved.
On the same section, on the same page, on the same line 5, remove the words "and2" and insert a new sentence to start. Further, it will also be for the word enhance. And on the same section, Mr. President, on the same page from line 7 to 12, delete the whole paragraph. On the same section, on the same page, on line 13, add the phrase "pursuant to this policy" after the word "state" while changing the capital T to letter T. And the whole section 2 now shall read as follows. It is hereby declared the policy of the state to promote efficiency in the government, to enable it to pursue programs consistent with national goals for accelerated social and economic development. Further, it will also enhance intergovernmental relations for efficient and effective delivery of services. Pursuant to this policy, the state shall promote administrative decentralization to strengthen the autonomy of the local government units and accelerate the economic and social growth and development of the region. Also move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Section 2 is amended in the manner proposed by the committee.
Likewise, Mr. President, number 2, the second amendment on Section 4, page 2, from line 16 to 17, delete the following words: to implement the provisions of this act, and insert the following: for the establishment of the regional center. Originally in the committee report filed in the bills and indexed and distributed among the members, the amendments was from line 7 to 12. However, upon checking, it should be from line 16 to 17. As such, with the permission of the body, please allow me to make the corrections that the lines instead be changed to 16 to 17. Section 4 now read as follows. Within 60 days from the approval of this act, the National Economic and Development Authority, in coordination with the Department of the Interior and Local Government, shall formulate and promulgate the necessary rules and regulations for the establishment of the regional center. The implementing rules and regulations issued pursuant to this section shall take effect 30 days after its publication in at least 2 national newspapers of general circulation. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Last but not the least, on page 2, after Section 3 on line 13, insert a new section. The same privileges under the rules and regulations covering the region shall remain in force. In the committee report submitted, it was erroneously included as part of the original Section 4. However, the committee intends as a separate provision. Thus, Mr. President, with the permission of the body, may we be allowed to effect the corresponding changes. The original Section 4 shall be renumbered as Section 5, and the succeeding provisions shall be renumbered accordingly. I so move, Mr. President.
All right. And how shall it now read, Section 5?
Mr. President, Section 5 will read as follows. Within 60 days from the approval of this act, the National Economic and Development Authority, in coordination with the Department of the Interior and Local Government, shall formulate and promulgate the necessary rules and regulations for the establishment of the regional center. The implementing rules and regulations issued pursuant to this section shall take effect 30 days after its publication in at least 2 national newspapers of general circulation.
Yes, Mr. Sponsor, there was a sentence preceding what you have read in your committee report. It says, quote, the same privileges and the rules and regulations covering the regions shall remain in force. The sponsor, the chair noted, did not read this. Is this submitted as an amendment?
Mr. President, it's a new Section 4. My apologies, Section. I would read the new Section 4. The same privileges under the rules and regulations covering the region shall remain in force. And then,
Is it Section 5 now or Section 4?
What I read earlier, ito pong, this one, if within 60 days from the
Yes.
approval of this act will be Section 5, Mr. President.
All right. So Section 4 will read, the same privileges and the rules and regulations covering the regions shall remain in force.
Yes, Mr.
And then
President.
Section 5 will start with within 60 days and ending with general circulation.
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. Any objection here? None approved.
That's all, Mr. President, for the committee amendment.
President, move to close the committee amendment.
Period for committee amendments terminated.
Move to open the period for individual amendments.
Individual amendments is in order.
No individual amendment, Mr. President.
I move to close the period of individual amendments, Mr. President.
Period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill 5511 under Committee Report 351.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill number 5511 and the Committee Report 351 is approved on second reading.
President, I move that we suspend consideration of the measure.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we transfer proposed Senate Resolution 826 under Committee Report 288 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
88. I'm sorry.
Senate Resolution 826 under Committee Report 288.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the permission of the Senate, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution 826 under Committee Report 288.
What is this? Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Proposed Senate Resolution number 826 under Committee Report number 288, resolution directing the Committee on Accountability of Public Officials and Investigations of the Senate of the Philippines to investigate in aid of legislation the alleged 1.601 billion peso overpricing of the 11-story new Makati City Hall 2 parking building, the reported overpricing of the 22-story Makati City Hall building at average cost of 240,000 per square meter, and related anomalies purportedly committed by former and current local government officials and for other related purposes.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Pimentel to sponsor the measure.
Senator Pimentel is recognized.
Mr. President, on behalf of your Committee on Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations, more popularly known as Blue Ribbon, Subcommittee on proposed Senate Resolution numbers 826 and 1114. I have the honor to report to this august chamber for its consideration Committee Report number 288 dated November 5, 2015 on proposed Senate Resolution numbers 826 and 1114. Proposed Senate Resolution number 826 called for the investigation in aid of legislation of three subject matters. Number one, the alleged 1.601 billion pesos overpricing of the 11-story new Makati City Hall 2 parking building. Number two, the reported overpricing of the 22-story Makati City Hall building at the average cost of 240,000 pesos per square meter. And number three, related anomalies purportedly committed by former and current local government officials. Proposed Senate Resolution number 1114, on the other hand, calls for the investigation in aid of legislation of the alleged irregular transactions entered into by the Home Development Mutual Fund or the Pag-ibig Fund and the Boy Scouts of the Philippines and other related anomalies. PSR number 826 was referred to the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee on August 11, 2014. Thereafter, a subcommittee was created to conduct the inquiry in aid of legislation on the said proposed Senate resolution, and this representation headed that subcommittee. Jurisdictional challenges against PSR number 826 were filed by Mayor Jejomar Erwin S. Binay Jr., Ms. Ebing Baloloy, Attorney Pio Kenneth I. Dasal, Ms. Marjorie De Vera, and Professor Tomas B. Lopez, with the subcommittee on various dates. These jurisdictional challenges were all denied by the subcommittee for lack of merit, ruling that the subcommittee had jurisdiction to investigate and conduct hearings on PSR number 826. This partial committee report discusses the allegations of overpricing in the construction of the Makati City Hall 2 parking building. In resolving the issue of whether the Makati City Hall 2 parking building constructed at the cost of 2.28 billion pesos is overpriced, the subcommittee employed various tests and standards. The subcommittee employed, number 1, the valuation approach. Number 2, the benchmarking against industry standard approach. Number 3, the comparison approach. Number 4, the bill of quantities approach. And number 5, the opinion of experts approach. The evaluation approach took into consideration the total construction cost of the completed infrastructure project and compared this to its current market value. The Makati City Hall 2 parking building's actual cost is 2.28 billion pesos as compared to its current market value of 891 million pesos. Thus, using the valuation approach, the overprice is determined at 1.389 billion pesos. The benchmarking against industry standard approach looked into the construction cost per square meter of a comparable building in the industry. The Makati City Hall 2 parking building is considered an average standard office building. In 2012, the average construction cost per square meter of an average standard high-rise office building is only 35,260 pesos according to the 2012 Davis Langdon and Seya Construction Costs Handbook. Using the benchmarking against industry standard approach, Makati City residents paid 69,549 pesos and 52 centavos per square meter for a building which should have cost only around 35,260 pesos per square meter to construct, or an overprice of 34,289 pesos and 52 centavos per square meter. And if we multiply this amount with the contractor's declared construction floor area of 32,783.69 square meters, then we get the total overprice amount of 1.124 billion pesos. We compared the Makati City Hall 2 parking building with other buildings of either comparable or better design and technical specifications, and by doing so, we also clearly saw the overprice. We cited the Zuelig building, a premium-grade office tower in Makati City as an example. The Zuelig building has 33 above-ground floors with 5 basement floors. It provides approximately 65,000 square meters of Class A office space and approximately 2,000 square meters of retail area. It is notable for its environmentally conscious design, its distinctive facade, and its superior finishes. With all the foregoing high-end features, Zuelig building's construction cost per square meter is only 42,712 pesos, a cost much lower than Makati City Hall 2 parking building's 69,549 pesos and 52 centavos per square meter. The bill of quantities or bill of materials of the Makati City Hall 2 parking building, when presented in tabular form and compared by phases, likewise reveals an alarming pattern of overpricing. One observation is that the toilet finishes and plumbing fixtures increased dramatically per phase, especially in phases 4 and 5. The total amount of 1,716,000 pesos was spent on toilets found on the ground floor alone. Toilets on other floors amounted to 5.674 million pesos in Phase 4. In Phase 5, another 823,953 pesos was spent on toilets when the building was already habitable, and ready for occupancy. Also notice were the following costs in the bill of materials. The building signage cost 974,000 pesos or 40,000 pesos per letter. And the total signage cost for the project, for the entire project, is 4.2 million pesos. The total elevator cost is 12.35 million pesos. The total air conditioning system cost is 21.8 million pesos. The total cost of the interior garden at the 7th floor is 2.98 million pesos, with landscaping and finishes at the roof deck amounting to 14.48 million pesos. The two generators amounted to 36.35 million pesos. And the labor cost for the Meralco application is 21.99 million pesos. Expert resource persons invited by the Blue Ribbon Subcommittee likewise found the total construction cost of the Makati City Hall 2 building to be too high and excessive given the building's design and specifications. Architect Arnel Colcol of the Philippine Institute of Architects affirmed that the Makati City Hall 2 parking building is too expensive. Mr. Federico C. Cuervo, President and CEO of CVNA, in his report dated November 27, 2014, stated that as of the fourth quarter of 2013, the market value of the building is 891 million pesos with first-grade materials. And architect Carlo Mateo of Mana Architecture and Interior Design Company, the firm that prepared the architectural and other plans of the Makati City Hall 2 parking building, averred that the building is not worth 70,000 pesos per square meter. Based on his company's design, the estimated cost of the building is from 45,000 to 55,000 pesos per square meter. Hence, after careful scrutiny of the evidence on hand, the subcommittee concluded that the Makati City Hall 2 parking building is clearly overpriced, and the amount of the overprice is from a low of 1,124,137,306 pesos and 70 centavos to a high of 1,389,069,379 pesos and 14 centavos. The Blue Ribbon Subcommittee likewise found the following. Based on the Commission on Audit's initial evaluation report dated October 1, 2014, the project was implemented with undue haste as there was no annual procurement plan yet by the Makati Local Government Unit, including construction plans when it bid out and awarded to the project to Hillmarks Construction Corporation. There was no valid approved budget for the contract for Phase 3 when Makati City started the procurement process. Per COA inspection report dated July 7, 2011 for Phase 3, the parking building was already habitable and ready for use, yet the Makati City government still spent an additional 793 million pesos for it in Phases 4 and 5. There were unnecessary expenditures for mobilization and demobilization, excessive expenses in structural work, excessive structural design, no overall plan, and no idea as to total cost. There were several violations of the National Building Code. There were also allegations of bid rigging, payoffs to the members of the Bids and Awards Committee, and a 3-bag kickback system in place in the city of Makati. And there also arose the issue as to the true owner or owners of the vast hacienda in Rosario, Batangas, when it was alleged that the hacienda was the fruit of the system of project overpricing and kickbacks by the Makati City government. This system provided an illustration as to how monies from the coffers of Makati City bankrolled the improvements in the hacienda alleged to be owned by Vice President Binay. In this report, the subcommittee concluded that its investigation on the alleged overprice in the construction of the Makati City Hall 2 parking building has revealed the commission of the crime of plunder committed through what it called a grand conspiracy. It is worthy to note that various government agencies have acted in accordance with the discoveries that we have made therein. In January 2015, After being prompted by our investigations, the Boy Scouts of the Philippines was finally paid its long overdue rent by Alpha Land for the use of its share pursuant to the joint venture agreement between the BSP and Alpha Land in the amount of 7,709,920 pesos, and this covered 2014 rental payments. The Bureau of Internal Revenue has filed on January 22, 2015, a 73.34 million tax evasion complaint against Mr. Antonio Chu. And Mr. Chu is the person who claimed ownership of the Rosario, Batangas property. The Department of Agrarian Reform has investigated possible violations of Republic Act No. 6657, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law, in the Rosario, Batangas property. DAR Secretary Virgilio de los Reyes has committed to pursue the investigation of this property and to report to the subcommittee the results of this investigation on the alleged premature conversion or illegal conversion of agricultural land into any non-agricultural use. On May 7, 2015, the Anti-Money Laundering Council, pursuant to Section 10 of Republic Act No. 9160, otherwise known as the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2001, sought through an ex parte petition from the Court of Appeals an order freezing certain bank accounts of investments made by and insurance policies issued to Vice President Binay, Mayor Junjun Binay, Gerardo Limlingan, Edovigues Baloloy, Ernesto S. Marcado, Greenergy Holdings Incorporated, Sunchump Real Estate Development Corporation, Earthright Holdings Incorporated, Antonio L. Chu, Millennium Food Chains Corporation, Elinita S. Binay, Lily Hernandez Cristal, Carmelita Palo Galvan, Francisco Balaguer Baloloy, Bernadette Cesar Portoliano, Mitzi Uwano Sidillo, Marguerite Licknock, Melissa Gay Castañeda Limlingan, Victor S. Limlingan, Patricia Grace Limlingan Padua, Gerard Martin Castañeda Limlingan, James Lee Chu, Pei Feng Lee, Anne Lorraine Buencamino Chu, Frederick Dueñas Baloloy, Jennifer V. Baloloy, Mario Alejo Oreta, Jose Oreliaza, Daniel C. Subido, Man Bunchong, Erlinda S. Chong, April Joy Pascual Mercado, and Omni Security Investigation and General Services. The Court of Appeals First Division granted the petition and issued a freeze order on all the accounts of the foregoing as stated in the order dated May 11, 2015. Relevant to the pending case in the CA is a civil forfeiture case filed by the Anti-Money Laundering Council with the Manila Regional Trial Court, Branch 53, against the following individual respondents: Vice President Jejomar C. Binay, Mayor Junjun Binay, Ernesto S. Mercado, Antonio L. Chu, James L. Chu, Anne Lorraine B. Chu, Mario A. Oreta, Maria Luz A. Oreta, Maureen Ann O. Ferrer, Tomas B. Lopez Jr., Daniel C. Subido, Margarita Ann Aurea T. Subido, Man Bun Chong, Erlinda S. Chong, Pei Feng Lee, Kenneth Sabido S. Tan, Claire May Yu Ong, Makati Historical and Restoration Foundation Incorporated, Meridas Realty and Development Corporation, Metroway Solid Waste Management Corporation, Twin Leaf Group Incorporated, Cups and Mugs Kitchenette, Sunchump Realty Estate Development Corporation, Subido Pahente Certeza Mendoza and Binay Law Offices, and Greenergy Holdings Incorporated. The RTC Manila issued on November 13, 2015 a 20-day provisional asset preservation order after finding probable cause that subject bank accounts, insurance policies, securities, investments, and real properties in the name of respondents are related to unlawful activities or money laundering offenses. On December 15, 2015, the RTC Manila issued an asset preservation order commanding respondent banking and financial institutions, concerned private and government entities, and all individuals acting on their behalf to refrain from transacting, removing, converting, concealing, or through any other mode disposing each covered bank account, insurance policy, securities, investments, and real properties of the aforementioned individual respondents. The Philippine Stock Exchange on May 13, 2015 imposed a suspension on the trading of shares of Greenergy Holdings Incorporated as a result of the May 11, 2015 freeze order. It must be noted that the subcommittee was given the assurance by the Philippine Stock Exchange that all publicly listed companies that are under the PSE's jurisdiction shall be constantly monitored to ensure that the information and data that are given to the investing public are accurate, fair, objective, and complete. On October 12, 2015, the Office of the Ombudsman has found probable cause to file graft charges against Vice President Binay, Mayor Binay, and 22 others for malversation, falsification, violations of Section 3E of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, and violation of the Government Procurement Reform Act in connection with several alleged irregularities in the procurement and award of the contracts for the design and architectural services and the construction of Makati City Hall 2 parking building. Earlier, on October 9, 2015, Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales ordered the dismissal of suspended Makati Mayor Jejomar Erwin Junjun Binay Jr. and recommended that he be perpetually disqualified from holding any public office. In the course of our proceedings, we have likewise requested the Government Procurement Policy Board, through its Executive Director, Attorney Dennis S. Santiago, for recommendations to improve transparency and accountability in government procurement procedures. To date, however, we have yet to receive any recommendation from the GPPB. The Commission on Audit was also tapped to provide the subcommittee with ideas or concrete proposals in aid of legislation arising from this investigation or past investigations concerning infrastructure works of the government. The Securities and Exchange Commission, through Chairperson Teresita J. Herbosa, was also requested to submit a final report to the subcommittee on the transactions of the involved corporations that were mentioned in the course of our proceedings. In view of the various intergovernmental agencies' findings that were uncovered during the 25 hearings of the subcommittee, the following legislative recommendations have been adopted and forwarded. Number 1, for the Senate to review the grant to subcommittees of the Blue Ribbon Committee the power to cite and punish for contempt. Number 2, the enactment of a law providing for a presumption of overpricing in a government infrastructure project. Number 3, the enactment of a law requiring the use of acceptable industry standards approved by the COA and the DPWH, similar to the Langdon and SEA Construction Cost Handbook, as the basis for agency estimates and a standard reference material for all government infrastructure projects. Number 4, the enactment of a law enhancing the transparency of government procurement processes by the mandatory video recording of all government procurement procedures and/or activities. Number 5, the enactment of a law that would require the inspection by COA of government construction or infrastructure projects to be undertaken together with an independent special inspection company, or the so-called independent third party. Number 6, enactment of a law which would require the periodic rotation of the chairperson and members of the Bids and Awards Committee of local government units in order to prevent the evil of too much familiarization and camaraderie with those transacting with the LGU. Number 7, enactment of a law which will allow the opposition and the dissenters, especially in local government units, access to official records as a matter of right, like the Freedom of Information Law. One project, one ordinance. That is the enactment of a law requiring local government units to pass one specific ordinance authorizing and governing the construction of each big ticket or big budget infrastructure project, complete with cost estimates and planned sources of budget allocation, as well as descriptions, plans, and drawings which give an idea as to the final look and outcome of the project. Number 9, enactment of an anti-dummy of public officials law and making acting as a dummy of a public official for corrupt purposes a specific crime with stiff penalties. Number 10, amend Republic Act Number 6770, otherwise known as the Ombudsman Act of 1989, to strengthen the Ombudsman's powers in cases of forfeiture of unlawfully acquired properties of public officials and employees. And number 11, amend Republic Act Number 6541, as amended by Presidential Decree 1096, otherwise known as the National Building Code, to impose stiff penalties of imprisonment and fine for serious violations of this law. And for the record, Mr. President, it is the position of the subcommittee that the following personalities should be investigated for and after proper proceedings ultimately be charged with the crime of plunder, by the proper government agency. To wit, number 1, Vice President and former City Mayor Jejomar C. Binay. Number 2, City Mayor Jejomar Erwin S. Binay Jr. Number 3, Marjorie De Vera. Number 4, Lorenza P. Amores. Number 5, Gerardo K. San Gabriel. Number 6, Pio Kenneth Dasal. Number 7, Ulysses E. Orienza. Number 8, Efren M. Canlas. Number 9, Robert B. Henson. Number 10, Orlando M. Mateo. Number 11, Gerardo Jerry Limlingan. And number 12, Eduviges Ebeng Di Baloloy. It is the position of the subcommittee that the possible involvement of the COA auditors in the grand conspiracy unearthed in our hearings should be further investigated by the proper government agency. The possible involvement of the following personalities in the grand conspiracy we have mentioned in the report should also be further investigated by the proper government agency, to wit, Mr. Antonio Chu and Mr. Laureano R. Gregorio Jr. Also, the proper government agency should investigate and, after proper proceedings, charge those who violated the Government Procurement Reform Act and the National Building Code. Further, administrative charges should also be filed against the concerned Makati city officials. So hence, Mr. President, I submit the subcommittee partial report for the consideration of this August body. Thank you very much, Mr. President, my dear colleagues.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, to give our colleagues time to study the report, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Resolution 826 under Committee Report 288. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, proposed Senate Resolution 826 under Committee Report number 288. Consideration is suspended.
Mr. President, move to suspend for 1 minute.
1 minute suspension.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we transfer House Bill 6152 under Committee Report 443 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
I move that we consider House Bill 6152 under Committee Report 443.
Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 6152, not declaring the province of Batanes as a responsible community-based cultural heritage and ecotourism zone.
I move that we recognize Senator Lauren Legarda to sponsor the measure.
Senator Lauren Legarda is recognized to sponsor House Bill 6152 under Committee Report 443.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to seek approval of the proposed measure under Committee Report 443, titled An Act Declaring the Province of Batanes as a Responsible Community-Based Ecotourism Zone and Appropriating Funds therefore. The story of Batanes, with its unique geographical location and its people, provide experiences and lessons in man and nature coexisting in harmonious and mutually nurturing relationship in a fragile environment. The province offers an amazing landscape composed of stretches of vivid green fields perched above a rugged coastline, rolling hills, and a vast blue sky that seems to constantly reach out to the ocean. Also noteworthy is its vernacular architecture, which shows lessons on the protection and adaptation of man from natural elements. Its people, the Ivatans, continue to nurture their cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible. Both the government and the private sector recognize the province's potential to become an ecotourism zone. In fact, since 2014, Batanes has been experiencing a dramatic increase in the number of tourists visiting the province. But we are aware of a negative impact of unplanned tourism development, and we do not want this pristine island group to be subjected to abuse and exploitation of tourists, whether intentional or otherwise. While infrastructure, human capital, and tourism products and programs are being developed, the importance of sustaining the natural and cultural heritage of Batanes remains a key priority in the development of the province. This proposed measure will declare the province of Batanes as a responsible, community-based ecotourism zone. It shall be accorded priority development by the national government in promoting and protecting the integrity of its ecology and environment, the richness of its natural and cultural heritage, and the resilience of its indigenous social institutions and its people. With the foregoing considerations, I call on my colleagues in this august chamber for their support to this measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Legarda. The Majority Leader is recognized.
Your board members were here.
Sirs.
Mr. President, there are no members who wish to interpolate. I move that we close the period of interpellations.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none. The period for interpellation on House Bill 6152 under Committee Report 443 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period for committee amendments.
Individual.
Any period for committee amendments is in order? Any committee amendment? Madam
There's
Sponsor?
Mr. President, there's one committee amendment on page 3, line 16.
I'm sorry, page
3, line 16.
page 3, line 16.
Between the words other and worship, insert the phrase places off. I submit.
Please repeat, can the sponsor repeat the amendment?
On page 3, line 16, between the words other and worship,
There is a word religious between those two words.
this will be addressed by the individual amendment after this committee amendment, Mr. President.
All right, so what is the committee amendment?
The committee amendment is page 3, line 16, between the words other and worship, insert the phrase places off.
Places of. As the chair wishes to point out that on line 16, the sentence reads, cultural property refers to all products of human creativity by which a people and a nation reveal their identity, including churches, mosques, and other places of religious worship.
Yes. May I request for a 1-minute suspension? I'll check with the ComSec about this. Thank you.
Suspended for 1 minute.
Ready to resume, Mr. President?
Session is resumed.
I move that Senator Legarda be recognized.
Senator Legarda is recognized.
Yes,
once
Mr.
more.
President, after conferring with the committee secretary, may I withdraw the committee amendment and instead propose an individual amendment which will address the concerns of the chair.
All right, so amendment is withdrawn.
I move to close the period of committee amendments, Mr. President.
So terminated.
Move to open the period of individual amendments.
Individual amendments is in order.
On page 3, line 16, the phrase places of should be inserted between the words other and religious instead of between the words other and worship. Thus, the term cultural property shall now be defined as cultural property refers to all products of human creativity by which a people and the nation reveal their identity, including churches, mosques, and other places of religious worship, schools, and natural history specimens and sites, whether public or privately owned, movable or immovable, and tangible or intangible, period.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all for the individual amendment.
No other individual amendments. I move to close the period, Mr. President.
So closed.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill 6152 under Committee Report 443.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill 6152 under Committee Report number 443 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill 6152.
Any objection? Hearing none. Suspended.
Mr. President, before we move to the next measure, I move that we, for administrative matters, we manifest the following members of the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions on Senate Bill 3023 and House Bill number 6395 on foreign ownership restrictions. Senator J.V. Ejercito as the chairperson, this representation, and Senator Cynthia Villar. So moved.
Any objection? Hearing none. The Senate contingent to the Bicameral Conference Committee is so constituted.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration on Senate Bill 3035 under Committee Report 339. This is
Any
the
objection?
proposed public-private partnership bill.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of the measure is in order.
Parliamentary status of the measures that the sponsor delivered a sponsorship speech last December 15, 2015. I move that we open the period of interpellations.
Period for interpellation is in order.
I move that we recognize one of the sponsors, Senate President Pro Tempore Ralph Recto.
Senate President Pro Tempore Ralph Recto is recognized.
To interpolate, move that we recognize Senator Sergio Mena. Mr. President.
Senator Sergio Mena III is recognized on the period of interpellation. Senator Mena.
Thank you, Mr. President. With good sponsor yield.
Willingly, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. President, this representation has always been in favor of the BOT law and its variant, the PPP. However, this representation fails to understand the need for a PPP law, given that the BOT law has already been working quite well. Would the good sponsor please read into the record the reason for this bill and how it may improve the development of our of our infrastructure?
Yes, Mr. President. First of all, with regard to the existing BOT law, I think there is a need to amend the present BOT law, and as His Honor is aware, Mr. President, that there are many problems today with implementing the original BOT.
Such as?
We have seen, Mr. President, that you do have most of the BOT projects undertaken under the BOT, the old BOT law, has hit snags, Mr. President. I'm sure that the gentleman from Cebu knows that even the difficulty in bidding, cases being filed in court, it's been very difficult for us to roll out PPP projects, Mr. President, in general. No? And many of them, until today, have court cases, Mr. President. Now, this law, this new amendment to the BOT law, in effect, or this new law that we are creating now, takes into consideration all the problems of the old BOT law. What we are doing here also, Mr. President, is limiting the scope of what can be PPP projects. In the past, any government agency, by and large, could undertake PPP projects. Here, we're spelling out the type of infrastructure projects, the implementing agency, so that it is more focused. As an example, Mr. President, we are focused here on railway, airport, seaport, toll roads, maybe water projects that improve our competitiveness. We are introducing a feature of affordability of user fees in this current bill. The committee as well makes it easier for LGUs to undertake PPP projects.
May we go one by one, Mr.
Yes.
President?
Yes.
You mentioned just a while ago that this cures several defects in
Yes.
existing law. Let's go one by one. What are those defects, and how is it cured in this law?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, Mr. President, one, the current law allows almost all government agencies to undertake PPP projects. So there is no focus, Mr. President. Okay? Now, this bill limits the scope of PPP to vital infrastructure projects, basically.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I really need more specifics. So you want to cut
Specific,
down
Mr.
on
President, yes.
you want to cut down on all government agencies.
That
so
is
give
correct.
me an example where a bad government agency has undertaken a PPP project and how they would be cut out of this bill.
What I'm saying here, yes,
cut
Mr.
out of the
President.
loop.
Today, any government agency, any GOCC could
Name
undertake.
one. Name the project, please.
Yeah, that's right. TRB, Toll Regulatory Board. They are
Okay.
a regulatory body.
Yes.
And I think it is difficult for them to operate or to be a project proponent for a PPP project. That's an example.
Example,
A toll road.
which toll road?
South to south. NLEX, SLEX, Skyway.
They're not the contractor. They're not, I'm sorry, they're not the lead agency. They're the regulator.
They are supposed to be the regulator, but they're also
The lead proponent
they
there.
are the contracting partner.
I'm not too sure of that. The lead proponent for example, the SLEX, the South, the earlier one, the first one in 1977, and which was legalized by the president under PD 1112 and 1113, was given to CDCP, except that the franchise ran out in 2007, no? And we did not extend the franchise
Correct.
of the
Correct.
CDCP.
Correct.
So that was not a TRB contract. The TRB was just the regulatory agency.
They are now part of the contracting party. There is a JV now between the operators of the toll road facilities and the TRB. So in effect, they are one of the owners.
All right, but I'd like to be very clear on that.
Yes.
Give me a copy of that contract. That was never a contract between the TRB and the...
What we are spelling
the
out in the bill
proponent.
as well, Mr. President, is that regulatory bodies should not be involved in being a project proponent.
I wholeheartedly agree with
That's
you.
right. So we're
okay,
spelling
so
that out in
TRB
this
is
measure.
one. What's the other?
Philippine Ports Authority.
PPA.
That's right.
All right. PPA is under DOTC. Would
That
you
is
not
correct.
consider DOTC qualified to undertake projects?
The DOT as an implementing agency could undertake a PPP under this bill, but not the PPA.
Yes. All
Because
right.
the PPA
Now,
should be the regulatory body.
all right. So, for example, the Sasa port in Davao, is that a project of the DOTC or the PPA?
Today it is both
Both.
co-grantors. So this bill will not allow the PPA
Now,
to grant PPP
the local
projects.
government of Davao, for example,
Yes.
just using the Sasa project, has rejected the Sasa project, and yet the DOTC still declared a couple of days later that we would be pushing through with the 19 billion expansion of the Sasa port. How does this PPP law resolve that?
Under this bill, Mr. President, even before the project commences, there must be an approval from the RDC, even before you take it up with the NEDA board.
The RDC.
That is correct.
Suppose it falls within a city, a local government unit.
If it's in a single local government unit, then the local government should be consulted on the matter.
Where in the bill does it say?
That is
It's not yet in the bill.
for a local project. No, that's for a local project. Yeah, we can include that, Mr. President. At the appropriate time.
Just to clarify,
Yes, Mr. President.
the local government unit will have veto power.
This is prior on the approval process to begin with. But there are sections also in the local government code.
The local
That
government
local-
code, Mr. President, as we all know, the local body has to approve any project, any national project that
Government
falls
project.
within its scope.
That is correct. So
And,
that's
you
another
know,
law that can
they
be
have-
utilized.
Yeah, and that falls under the local government
That
code.
is correct.
Yes.
All right, I just wanted to put that in there.
So I want to know how come the Davao Sasa project is still being pushed by the DOTC. Is the DOTC allowed to completely disregard the local government? Today, yeah, I'm talking about today, without this bill.
Today, it did not go through the approval process before the NEDA board. It was after the approval that the RDC made an endorsement.
The RDC made an endorsement.
After the approval of the project by the NEDA board.
That's the RDC. I'm
That's
talking
correct.
about the city council.
I agree with the gentleman from Cebu, Mr. President. Like I said, and as the gentleman knows, you can utilize the local government code. I don't mind inserting a provision later on in the bill as well to strengthen local autonomy. And like I said, that it has to go through the local council. Especially in the case of Davao, because it is not really a regional project, but more so in Davao City.
It's Davao City.
That's
Well,
correct.
we all know that Davao is as big as a province.
Yes, yes.
I consider Davao a province in itself because it's so huge.
Yes.
Davao, Calbayog, Puerto Princesa, and Zamboanga.
But I think it
City.
will be difficult to implement that project without the approval of the local government unit, Mr. President.
But, Mr. President, I have the clippings. I'll have the announcement of the Secretary that they will continue with the bidding. Now, there have been 5 groups that have bought the bidding documents, the terms of reference. And
My personal take on it, Mr. President, is that I don't think it will be feasible.
well, whether it's feasible or not, we don't like them just stepping all over the local government
I
unit
agree, Mr.
and saying, baliwala yung decision ninyo.
I agree. Mr.
Itutuloy natin yan. And the amount involved is so vast because just to put on record, an earlier estimate in 2013 valued the project, the expansion, at 4 billion. And then all of a sudden, a year later, they turn around and say it's 19 billion. Now, Mr. President, that's a very small port. You really cannot expand it much. So what they'd be doing is just reclaiming and adding piles. But the throughput has already dropped from about 500 TEUs to about 300 TEUs, or 20-foot equivalent units. Because the majority of the exports of Davao are bananas. Yeah, the majority of the exports of Davao are bananas. And say, for example, the Florendo Group has already established a much bigger port a few miles up north in Panabo, and then there's another one that's ongoing a little more north of Panabo in Tagum, undertaken by ICTSI. So the businessmen of Davao have come to our committee and asked, what are we spending so much money for? Because those of us that use break bulk cargo and still would be using SASA would be paying almost double what we are paying today, and there's no need for that. So, Mr. President, it's the arrogance of the department that bothers the people of Davao, and I told them that I would stand for them, and we're not going to allow this.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm against that project too, Mr. President.
So how do we stop it?
I think with this bill it will help that projects of that nature will not happen again.
Well, it has to be stopped. We actually have to give absolute veto powers to the local government unit. Because in essence, it will be the users who will be paying for this.
That is correct.
So you're going to give me a gold-plated port when I only need a...
Precisely. And that's why I think that no one's going to use that port.
They will have to. The break bulk
yeah.
will have to, except that it will probably, the throughput will even probably be lower because of the expense involved. So if you've got big banana containers, you just bring it to Panabo. It will be cheaper.
Precisely the point, Mr. President.
But then the people of Davao will be stuck with it. Those who are break bulk, those who import, they will be stuck with those doubling of rates. And not only that, Mr. President, after 2 years, sky's the limit. All right. Second, Mr. President, let's go to a couple of points in the PPP bill, which we'd like some clarification on. On page 9, line 15, there's a proviso that reads that the equity contribution of the implementing agency in a joint venture corporation shall in no case exceed 50% of the outstanding capital stock. What is the meaning of this, Mr. President? Why the limit to 50%? And why would the implementing agency be involved in a joint venture? I always thought the PPP was no money out.
In this case, Mr. President, there are many variants, and one of which is a joint venture. Okay? I think it only makes sense that we allow for joint venture agreements as well. That's one, no? Second is that anything above 50% from the public sector in a joint venture agreement makes them a government-owned and controlled corporation.
Okay.
So the idea is
this will
less
not
than majority.
Then this will not be a GOCC.
This will not be a GOCC.
What are the advantages or disadvantages?
So it will be the private sector will be running the show, but then we will have as much as 50% equity, and then we could gain from the upside.
All right. Would the directors then, government directors, have to be cleared with the GCG?
That is correct.
They still would have to be cleared with the GCG, but you said this is not going to be a
Correct.
GOCC.
No, I'm talking about the the joint venture, if there will be directors into this corporation from the government side,
Yes.
they will have to go through the GCG, I suppose. Diba?
I think we'll have to be clear on that because essentially you're already saying here, correct me if I'm wrong, that this would not be a GOCC because the equity contribution of the government agency is less than 50%.
Yeah, but the board of directors. Yes. If there will be government directors in this private corporation, they may not have to go through the GCG, but they would still be appointed or nominated by the government.
Wouldn't that be, for lack of a better term, in violation of the spirit why we passed the GCG law?
Not really, Mr. President, because right now, even the SSS, the GSIS, who have board seats in respective private corporations, they're nominated by the board, or they're members of the board.
Yes, but they're nominated by the members by virtue of their being
Correct.
investment of the SSS.
That's correct.
All right. So give me an example, an implementing agency. Give me one implementing agency who would be able to
Joint
go.
venture agreement. I can think of local governments, Mr. President.
You
That's
see,
one.
Mr. President, aside from GSIS or SSS or DBP and Land Bank, I don't know of any government corporation that really would have funds to invest in a private joint venture.
They do. Okay. From what I know, representatives of the TRB, I am told, they sit in the board.
Well, TRB is now out, so
That's
who
right.
else could do? Who else could
No, that's just an
could
example.
do this? Yeah. What I just fear, Mr.
One could be the Philippine Reclamation Authority, as an example, possibility.
Philippine Reclamation Authority. It's one of the most corrupt agencies in government. Why would we want to them to do this?
That's happening now. Diba? Do they sit? These are only examples, Mr. President. Like I said, local government units.
There's no existing example aside from the TRB and Lex.
The TRB is one example, Mr. President.
Yeah, and anyway, we're prohibiting that already, so
That's right.
that would not be a good example. Any other existing examples aside from the PPA? Does the PPA assign directors in any of its projects? Wala naman eh. Hindi naman joint venture like SASA is not SASA Davao is not a joint venture. It's a PPP.
You know, the 50% could be in right of way as well.
Right of way.
Provision of right of way. I have property, for example, that put up a port. Gobyerno may-ari ng property, and I get 50% of the company. So that could be a joint venture agreement.
Okay.
And then my nominees can sit in the board. That's an example. It need not be cash, Mr. President.
But we don't let the GCG control the quality of the nominees, vet the qualifications of the
I'm willing to
nominees.
listen to the gentleman from Cebu. If you want to put certain standards for nominees.
We're already there. We'll let the GCG do it. Anyway,
Yes.
we can move on to
Yes.
others. O&M contracts. Why are O&M contracts
What
now
page, what
included?
line? Yeah.
I'm on the next one, line 20,
Okay.
page 9.
Okay.
Operations and maintenance contracts. I'm sorry, we call it O&M. Why are they now recognized as a contractual agreement? I mean, this is usually open to anybody. Anybody who wants to manage, to maintain, I mean,
Yeah. This is a part of the PPP, variations of contractual arrangement. We listed in section 14 the different type of variations of contractual arrangement. So you have the build and transfer, build, lease, and transfer, right? Build, own, and operate. So on down the line, and then we included as well joint venture agreements as a form of a PPP, including operations and maintenance contracts. So in this case, government owns the facility and government bids out the operations and maintenance of that facility.
yeah, we already do that, Mr.
That's
President. We do that with some power plants, like, for example, the operation and maintenance of Malaya 1 and Malaya 2, no? So what's the big difference? I mean, if you include it now in the PPP, what's the big deal?
So, for example, you could, government can own the airport, government could own the MRT, the LRT, but the operations and maintenance of that facility is done by the private sector.
But, Mr.
Through a
President,
contractual arrangement.
we have several such arrangements
Precisely.
existing
We're-
today.
Precisely.
So
We're
how will
just
that
spelling
make
it
this?
out. We're
Why would
spelling
that
it out.
make this any different if we include O&M
We're
in
just
this deal?
spelling it out as part of the PPP variations.
I see. So you just identify the
Yes.
variant.
Yes.
All right.
Different variants. yes.
Now I understand there are 24 possible modalities, and we've only included 11. Why is that? First, I'd like to have a list of all the other modalities under this PPP. Kasi ang pinili lang dito, nakasama lang dito sa bill na ito, 11. Pero pwede daw umabot ito hanggang 24, 2 Why is it, what are the others and why have they been excluded?
The committee identified these 11, Mr. President. I'm
Will
not
you give
familiar.
us, could you
The
give
chairman
us
is not familiar.
the 24?
Yes. Yes, the PPP Center will give you a copy of the
All right.
24. If there are 24, I'm not aware, Mr. President.
Okay.
The committee only studied the 11, Mr. President.
I would like to go from the universe, what's the biggest universe, and then cut it down rather than just depend on the agency
Sure.
to tell us these are the only things that we want included. Diba?
Sure.
Now, the authority on page 10, Mr. President, section 5, line 16,
Okay.
authority of implementing agencies. The line reads, implementing agencies are hereby authorized to undertake PPP projects with any project proponent in accordance with the provisions of this act. That's a very motherhood statement. That's what this whole bill is about, no? In undertaking a PPP project in this act, every GOCC and its subsidiaries shall secure the approval of the head of the implementing agency to which the GOCC is attached. So in
That's
this
right.
particular case, let's say the PPA were not a regulatory agency, they still would have to get the approval of the Secretary of the DOTC.
That is correct.
All right. So therefore, the power really rests with that cabinet head.
That is correct.
All right. And what if it's a stupid cabinet head? Aren't we giving... this is...
Remember,
I have
Mr.
seen
President.
cabinet heads that are really jerks.
Remember, I agree with you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Remember that there is a process here that you follow. It goes through the NEDA board, so on and so forth. There's an approval process. Okay, it's evaluated. That's precisely what the bill is all about. Okay, and we've limited it to certain departments, not to all departments, Mr. President.
Pero teka muna,
Yes.
Mr. President. Ang nakasulat dito, every GOCC and its subsidiary shall
Correct.
secure the approval of the head of the implementing agency.
Correct.
So that gives the power to the head of the agency.
That is correct, but
Secretary.
limited to a few departments only.
Well, so we'll have name those departments.
Like on page
And-
3, implementing agencies refers to the Department of Public Works and Highways.
Okay.
So GOCCs under the DPWH.
No, I have
Assuming that there were any.
no
That's
complaint
right.
about the cabinet secretary
Okay,
and the
so
DP.
GOCCs, if they had any PPP projects that they want to
Name
evaluate,
the other cabinet.
Department of Transportation and Communications.
Ayun, problema.
Precisely the point, Mr. President. I think in the future between you and me, Mr. President, the reason why we have many of these problems today in the DOTC is we lack the necessary people in the DOTC.
No.
You don't have much
No.
engineers, civil engineers, so
No.
on and so forth in
I'm
this,
sorry,
in
I
this
disagree.
department, among other reasons, Mr. President. I think
Let's
if
go
I had
to the
my
other
way,
reasons.
if I had my way, Mr. President, in the future, for as long as the Secretary is good, the Department of Transportation should be merged with the Department of Public Works and Highways. For as long as you have a good Cabinet Secretary.
Well,
But if you have a lousy Cabinet Secretary,
we
then,
always assume we
but
little
that's why
guys
you have
in
the
government.
Commission on Appointments, Mr. President. Okay?
You know, the trouble is they rush you. So you go to the Commission on Appointments and they expect you to be confirmed in 6 months, maybe 1 year maximum. Well, in the last appointee the first appointee under this administration to the Department of Energy, we approved in 6 months. But the second appointee, I decided to hold back because I could see that he was not paying much attention, and he never got approved. But it doesn't make any difference. He still stayed the course until the President accepted his resignation. So that CA really doesn't make that much of a difference whether you're confirmed or not. That proves the case, no? And we can live with that. But the thing is, Mr. President, that the CA is not a guarantee.
I agree with
that
you,
the
Mr. President.
appointee is going to do well.
But I'm just
And we
pointing
can't
out,
even get rid of him if he doesn't do well.
the only thing I'm pointing out, Mr. President, is you do have a DOTC.
Yes.
And most of the projects that need to be undertaken are under the DOTC.
That's right.
Such as the LRT, the PNR, the MRT, the airports, the seaports, name it, Mr. President.
And
And that's why we included
this
the
will
DOTC.
give more power to the DOTC.
Today, they have the authority under the current BOT law.
That's correct.
That's right.
So I'd want to be able to make sure that the people of the Philippines will be able to at least exercise an exit strategy in case the department isn't doing well. And that's why we were asking also that maybe a regional NEDA could study the project and come up with recommendations.
All of this goes through the NEDA process. We are not changing anything here, Mr. President. All projects 1 billion and above, regardless of financing, whether it's local, whether it's GA funded, ODA funded, a combination of both, or PPP, still goes through the NEDA.
All right, let me read to you the Section 5. In undertaking a PPP project under this Act, every GOCC and its subsidiaries shall secure the approval of the head of the implementing agency to which the GOCC is attached.
That is correct.
Where's the NEDA?
It's found in a different section, Mr. President.
So would there be conflict? Where's the
No
NEDA?
no conflict, Mr. President.
Suppose NEDA says no, DOTC says yes.
The
What
NEDA
happens?
will be followed, Mr. President.
Perhaps
NEDA board.
Perhaps a good sponsor might point out the
Section 8, approval of PPP projects. The approval of PPP projects under this Act shall be in accordance with the following. National PPP projects shall be approved by the NEDA board. The NEDA board is, the president is the chairman of the NEDA board. It is only the implementing agencies that conduct the bidding. First, they're the project proponent. It goes through the NEDA board. Once it's approved by the NEDA board, process under NEDA first, and then it goes to the NEDA board. Once it's approved by the NEDA board, it goes back now to the implementing agency. The implementing agency now will design the bid, will bid it out. If there are variations difference in what was approved by the NEDA board and the terms of reference of the implementing agency, it goes back again to the NEDA board.
All right, so perhaps at the proper time, under Section 5, we can add a culatilla, a provision that says, shall secure the approval of the head of the implementation of the implementing agency to which the GOCC is attached, subject to the approval of NEDA, or something to that effect. In other words, I want to link it already to NEDA.
Okay, sure, Mr. President.
Now, Mr. President, on the following page, page 11, line 13, section 7, this is the section on unsolicited proposals.
Yes, Mr. President.
So projects that are not in the list of priority projects may be considered for unsolicited proposals. Priority projects shall not be considered for unsolicited proposals except when they involve a new technology, concept or technology, or do not have feasibility studies. I'd like this explained, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President.
And let me be a little bit more specific so that you don't waste time. My understanding of the past existing BOT law is that unsolicited proposals can be accepted subject to a Swiss challenge. But they can only be accepted if it involves a new technology. A new technology. We have always violated that, Mr. President. We even receive unsolicited proposals and an award for purchase of real estate. Now that opens. Okay, there was 35 hectares in the BCDA that was bought by the SM Group under the unsolicited proposal, and the Supreme Court upheld
Mr.
it
President,
under the Swiss.
that is not under the PPP or BOT
That
law.
is what I'm trying to point out, because we put that unsolicited proposal in the original BOT law that was passed when in 1992. Ginagamit ngayon sa mga ibang project.
But not through the BOT law. They're
Maybe
using
not through the
something
BOT
else.
law, but
Yeah.
I can go to a government agency tomorrow, let's say the BCDA, and say, here's an unsolicited proposal to buy 100 hectares in Clark. They can accept it. We should never allow unsolicited proposals that way unless it involve a new technology. Otherwise, it's not fair. Unahan mo lang ako eh. Unahin mo lahat. Eh, ang dali-dali naman. We have, the government has hundreds of billions, trillions of pesos in assets. And I can go up to the government and say, unsolicited proposal, I want to buy this little port in Zambales, for example. With nobody looking, the head of agency can say, all right, I'll award it to you, it looks good, subject to Swiss challenge. Eh, sino naman magpapagawa ng
I think that is illegal, Mr. President. And
It
that
is
not-
illegal, yes,
That is
sir.
not part of the PPP law.
No, but what I want to do is to make sure that it is spelled out that it is illegal. And since the original BOT law was the one that introduced the concept of unsolicited proposal and price challenges or Swiss challenges, as they call it, it's now been expanded. Mr. President, I just questioned before the Supreme Court one such proposal, and it was disguised as the right to top, which is really the right to match, no? On the sale of a power plant owned by the government in Cebu, in Naga, Cebu. At ang nakasulat doon, there are two plants. I will simplify. There are two plants. One was very small plant. The other one was 150 megawatts. And in the bidding for that small plant in 2009, nakasulat doon na, and the one who wins this bid will have the right to match the price for the adjoining plant, the 150 megawatts. I had to take it to the Supreme Court. Luckily, the Supreme Court decided in our favor last month. But this has opened up a can of worms. And I'd like to be able to use this as an opportunity to close that window, so that the Filipino people will not be shortchanged with these shadowy deals that really are beginning to take on a patina of legality when they're not.
Mr. President, the examples that you mentioned earlier deal with privatization, not so much with PPP.
I
The
understand
some
that.
assets are all privatized, so that is a different law altogether.
I understand that, but
Yes.
please understand that
I
this
understand
thing
where
was-
you're coming from. I understand where
This
you're
thing
coming
was
from.
born out of the BOT law. And when people started becoming familiar with the term price challenge, Swiss challenge, right to match, unsolicited offer, nawala yung must have a new technology. Take a look at the BOT law. It was amended. This came out, that particular phrase was introduced as an amendment to the BOT law. This was in 1995, early 95. Do you have a copy there?
No, I agree with the gentleman
All right.
from Cebu. I have no problem with that, Mr. President.
Provided it involves a new technology. Nakalimutan yon. Now everything is unsolicited offer. So maybe we, during the period of amendments, we can introduce something that will totally make sure that that does not happen and expand further that big loophole that has been created by the wrong interpretation of the BOT law. Accept, on line 19, accept unsolicited proposals on a negotiated basis. I object to this. I'm not allowing this, Mr. President.
Mr. President, it says here, provided that the following conditions are met. One, the project does not receive a viability
VGF?
gap funding. Viability gap funding. That means a subsidy or direct payments from any government agency.
That doesn't help.
That
Go
means
on.
only user fees.
That doesn't help. Go on.
It does, Mr. President. Again, accept the unsolicited proposal on a negotiated basis, provided that the following conditions are met. There is no government subsidy, number one. That means it has to generate its own income through user fees. Two, guided by the principles of transparency and competitiveness. The implementing agency is invited for publication for 3 consecutive weeks in a newspaper general circulation. So it sets out the rules.
Ayun, Mr. President,
Correct.
ayan na nga ang kalukuhan eh. Alam mo bakit?
Pero at least maliwanag dito, we have put the rules in place here.
You
B.
have allowed
Yes.
them to accept the unsolicited proposal. First objection, on a negotiated basis. Second objection,
Provided that the
guided
following,
by the principles of transparency. Kuning lang yan, ha?
provided the following conditions are met. So
Yes.
you cannot accept
And
the proposal.
And the conditions are no good.
Remember this, Mr. President, just one point. No? What is an unsolicited proposal ba? Yung solicited proposal, ito yung that the government already listed down. These are must projects. Okay?
No, if it's
infra-
priority, it
Correct. Priority projects.
cannot be subjected to an unsolicited proposal.
Precisely.
Yes.
So it is in the Philippine Development Plan. There is an infrastructure plan. Okay?
Yes.
So these are solicited projects government is soliciting. Okay? What we're only saying here is that if someone comes out with a good idea, which is not listed here, why not take a look into that? That's all what we're saying here. Halimbawa, Mr. President, someone wants to build a bridge connecting 2 islands. That is not part of the priority list. But then the guy is saying, I'm going to build this bridge, connect the 2 islands. I'll spend for it. You don't have to spend a single centavo for this bridge. Government will not spend a single centavo. And I'll charge this user fee, toll
Correct.
road,
Now,
halimbawa, or toll bridge. Bakit hindi natin pakikinggan naman?
because Allow me to explain.
Yes.
All right. So you make that proposal, and it seems fair, it seems reasonable, and the government agencies, yes, we will accept it. What chance do I have, the challenger now, to match that proposal or to win it? Because all you have to do is match my proposal.
No, Mr. President, that's why on line 11, page 12, paragraph B, use the unsolicited proposal as basis for the public bidding. There is a public bidding in section 10 of this act.
I read that and I've underlined it, Mr. President, and I was going to ask you, in what way does public bidding resolve the right to match? Alam mo, yung unsolicited proposal, the normal result of that is the right to match. It's subjected to a Swiss
Line
challenge.
7. Yeah. Line 10. The original proponent shall have the right to outbid also.
That's right. See, that's
Right.
what I don't like.
Correct.
Wala na. Kung ako pong gusto mag-challenge, I'm not going to spend $1 million, $2 million to study the project, knowing that this guy's just sitting there and waiting for me to make my proposal, and all he has to do is match it.
You know, what we're trying to do here is just, again, what I said earlier. Why not listen? But if our colleagues in the chamber do not want the unsolicited proposal, then that's up to our colleagues here. I'm just putting down a proposal here. And
No,
what
I
we're saying
understand
is
that. I'm not
yes,
accusing you
yes,
of...
yes.
What I'm saying
And
is that I
this
do...
is the best that we could do, provide the rules in place, improving it from the previous ones, and that there are other sections in this bill with regard to that provision also, which tries to address many of the different concerns. Now, if our colleagues here say that, let's take away the unsolicited proposal, then I'm willing to accept that, Mr. President. Nakakapanghinayang lang that we
No,
don't
Mr.
put the rules in
President,
place.
I
Yes.
will accept the unsolicited
Yes.
proposal as long as it involves a new technology.
That's what it says here, Mr. President.
No, sir. That's not what it refers to. That's just a little exception.
Except when they involve a new concept or technology or do not have feasibility studies. Yes.
Remind me of that line. Here.
Again, line 13, projects that are not in the list of priority projects may be considered for unsolicited proposals. Priority projects shall not be considered for unsolicited proposals.
Yes, but you're talking about priority
Except-
projects. I'm talking about
No, precisely.
unsolicited proposals
Precisely.
for non-priority
Precisely.
projects.
We're identifying all of this, except when they involve a new concept or technology.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
President.
Yes.
That's different from what I'm talking about. You're talking about priority projects. I'm talking about non-priority projects.
Precisely the point.
Unsolicited proposals
Precisely.
for non-priority.
Precisely, Mr. President. We have defined here, in effect, what an unsolicited proposal is. It is not in the list of priority projects.
That's correct.
And if it is not in the list, it cannot be an unsolicited proposal. That's what we're saying here.
If it's not in the list of priority projects, it cannot be subject to unsolicited proposal.
Yes. Because
But
the list of priority projects is solicited. And
Mr. President, can you read line 14, 15? Priority projects shall not be considered for unsolicited proposals.
correct. Because it's a priority project, it is solicited.
So therefore, the only projects that can be considered for unsolicited proposals are the non-priority projects.
Correct.
We're
Which-
talking about the same thing.
Precisely the point.
Yeah. And I don't accept that we have to use unsolicited proposals for non-priority projects except if it involves a new technology.
That's why it says here on line 15, except when they involve a new concept or technology or do not have feasibility studies.
Mr. President, you're talking about priority projects.
No, Mr. President. Section 7, the title of which is unsolicited proposals.
Mr. President, the line reads, priority projects shall not be considered for unsolicited proposals.
Correct.
Except when they involve a new concept or technology, then therefore they'll be considered for unsolicited
correct,
proposals.
because there
Yes.
is now a new concept or technology, as you mentioned earlier.
No, but Mr. President, what I'm saying is I would like this line, another line to read, non-priority projects shall not be considered for unsolicited proposals except when they involve a new concept or technology.
Accepted. Accepted at the appropriate time. I will accept that amendment because that's the same intention that I do have.
All right.
Yes.
See, this thing just started with priority projects. There's no mention of...
I will accept, Mr.
non-priority
President.
projects. All right, because,
Because
Mr.
we're talking about the
President,
same thing.
I hope that we in this chamber can agree that
Yes.
any unsolicited kills the idea of public bidding.
That is not my intention here, Mr. President.
I'm sure it's not, Mr.
Yes.
President.
That's why there's a whole section and several pages on this issue, Mr. President. On the rules governing the bidding for unsolicited proposals.
On page 12, there's another
Yes.
issue on the use of unsolicited proposal as the basis for public bidding. Upon approval of the appropriate approving body, the original proponent shall be reimbursed of the costs incurred in the preparation of the proposal, such as the cost of any feasibility study undertaken. Now, that's okay, Mr. President. See, it's unsolicited proposal as the basis for public bidding.
Yes.
So, there will be public bidding.
Correct.
Basta i-reimburse mo lang ako.
Correct.
Di ba?
Correct. So it's found here, Mr. President.
Yeah. That's why there's a conflict between that and the earlier section that I had.
Okay. But that was the same intention, Mr. President.
All right. So maybe we can correct that. Now, Mr. President, on page...
So we agree on paragraph B, more or less.
I guess we agree on the concept that
Yes,
we will not
thank
be
you.
accepting unsolicited proposals for any project unless it involves a new technology.
Agreed.
Mr. President, just a clarification on the prohibition on the issuance of temporary restraining orders.
Okay.
No temporary restraining order, preliminary injunction, or preliminary mandatory injunction shall be issued by any court except the Supreme Court.
Correct.
Now, Mr. President, is this allowed under the law? Are we allowed to limit it to the Supreme Court? And normally, what I read is a Court of Appeals.
No, we can define the jurisdiction of the lower courts other than except the Supreme Court, which must have when we define the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, it must have the consent of the Supreme Court.
It
Below
must
the
have
Supreme
the
Court,
consent of the Supreme Court.
right? If it involves the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court.
All right. So therefore, we must clear this with the Supreme Court first.
Not necessary if you are defining the jurisdiction of the court lower than the Supreme Court.
But this says Supreme Court.
What page is that, Senator Osmania, if I
On
may?
page 20, Mr. President,
Here
line
it is,
6.
in effect, it is only the Supreme Court
It is
that
on-
can issue temporary
A
restraining
TRO.
orders, preliminary injunctions.
Yeah.
Only the Supreme
Yeah.
Court is
I was
what we're saying.
wondering,
To hasten the process para hindi masyado maraming kasuhan na, Mr. President.
no, I appreciate the idea, but normally I usually see the Court of Appeals, and I'm not a lawyer, so I wanted to clarify, is this acceptable?
This is a valid limitation on the power of the courts other than the Supreme Court.
Other than the
Yes.
Supreme Court.
So it's valid.
It's valid.
But we must get the Supreme Court to accept that this is going to be exclusive. Don't we need the approval of the Supreme Court?
No, sir, because we do not interfere with the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's jurisdiction is untouched in this provision.
All right.
So that is an important feature of this bill, Mr. President, which is not found in the BOT law, Mr. President.
Now, Mr. President, LGUs. We are given to understand that all existing contracts signed by the LGU are canceled.
On page 4, of course, we're identifying here a local PPP project refers to a PPP project that will be undertaken by an LGU. That's one. Okay. And then on page 5, priority project refers to a project identified by an implementing agency that may be undertaken under this act as a PPP project and is consistent with the Philippine Development Plan or its equivalent at the local level. And that's on page 5. And then, what page?
Mr. President,
Page 13.
I don't follow. These are definitions that you.
Yes, here. Okay, here, local projects. Local PPP projects.
What page, Mr. President?
Page 13. Section 8, approval of PPP projects. Okay.
Page 13, line
21.
21. Local projects,
Yeah,
yes.
remember, on line 10 is national PPP projects, paragraph A. Line 21B, local projects. Local PPP projects shall be confirmed by the local development councils concerned and approved by the local sanggunians.
All right.
Okay. In the past, they would have to go through NEDA, then they would have to go through the NEDA board. So we're taking all of that away, Mr. President. It strengthens their local autonomy.
Now, let's define, just for clarity,
Yes.
let's define what is meant by national PPP projects. National. Does this mean it's paid for by national? Does this mean because it's the implementing agency is national? What is a national PPP project?
There is here the national PPP, it's spelled out here. The national PPP project shall be approved by the NEDA board depending on the project cost as prescribed by the PPP governing board. Such approval shall be carried by the implementing agency or grantor concerned.
It's not there, Mr. President. What makes it national?
Page 5.
Page 5?
Line 1. Page 5, line 1. National PPP projects refers to a PPP project that will be undertaken by the national government.
All right. So if it's undertaken by
By the
a
national
national government
yes.
agency, it becomes a national project.
That's correct.
But if it's paid for by the locals, let's say it's undertaken by national but paid for by local through user fees, what is that?
No, those are consumers, Mr. President.
No, Mr. President, SASA project. That's going to be paid for by the,
Yeah, those
by the people of
assuming the
Davao.
users will be the consumer. Yeah, a toll road, Mr. President, going to Batangas.
Correct.
That is a national project.
Correct.
But those using the toll road in Batangas will be the users of that facility.
All right. So
Right.
that's a good idea.
Yes.
Let's talk about the toll
But
road
that is
in-
still a
in
national
Batangas.
project. Because the toll road, let's say SLEX, okay, that is an entire national project traversing different local government units and different provinces, all the way to the province of Batangas with the star. Okay?
My
So
my
those
my
using-
point is,
yes.
is this,
Yeah.
Mr. President. It's a national project because it's being undertaken by a
The
national
national
government
government,
agency.
Correct.
So let's say they're building a highway from another highway from Santo Tomas all the way to San Juan, Laia, etc. All right. They're building a 6-lane highway, and the people say, 6 lanes? I'm going to be paying more than what I want to pay. Why not a 4-lane?
Under the
In
bill,
other words,
Yeah.
ang gusto mo gold-plated, hindi ko naman,
Da-
I don't need a
dadaan yan.
Rolls-Royce, I just need a Toyota.
dapat yan dumaan ng NEDA board. Dadaan yan sa ICC
I
process
don't
sa
trust the NEDA
it
board.
goes through the
I've
NEDA
seen
board.
them approve some dumb things like that SASA project.
I agree with you. I disagree with the SASA project.
Oh. So,
Yeah.
it's a good thing meron na tayong sample eh.
Yeah. Here, in the bill, in every stage, there is a public consultation process also.
That's why I want to know
Yeah.
whether a local guy can object to a national project.
You can,
So,
yes.
if the people of Lipa say, "Putya
Yes.
naman, I don't want to pay 500 pesos. Pwede ba 300 lang?
Page.
Wag mo naman gawin 6 lanes yan. 4 lanes, okay na. Something like that. I'd like them to have at least a certain amount of control over what they will be paying. Because these would be the users. Now, Mr. President, let us not forget, the national government makes money on these PPP projects. It's a very big source of income.
Mr. President, we made sure that we have certain provisions with regard to those issues. No? Section 24, page 26, line 17, miscellaneous provisions. Paragraph A.
May I bother you and ask for the
Yes.
page again?
Page 26? 26, yes. Section 24, miscellaneous provisions. From line 17 to page 27.
17. Miscellaneous provisions?
Provisions, yes. Safeguard mechanism to protect public interest.
Oh, I like this, Mr. President. Whenever applicable, the implementing agencies shall assess the affordability of a fee or tariff and conduct a willingness to pay survey among the users
of the infrastructure facility.
All right.
And
Of
then
course-
paragraph
Of
2.
course, the users will say, I don't want to pay 500. I want to pay only 300. That's very normal, Mr.
Yes,
President.
paragraph 2. The implementing agency shall conduct public consultation or dialogue with all potential stakeholders, including the users, in all stages of the PPP project. And 3, the implementing agency in the PPP center shall post in their respective websites the approved sharing fare or user fee in a PPP project, as well as the approved parametric formula on fare increase or adjustments if applicable. So wala lahat yan under existing law.
So you can say, I consulted you, and I can answer, but I didn't agree with you, and you didn't follow what I say.
But we're making it as transparent as possible here, Mr. President. And we introduced the concept of affordability. That was not found in any of the original measures, Mr. President.
Yes, now the affordability, how will that be determined? How will that be implemented? Again, you consult me, 500 of us in one town, and say, Boss, 300 pesos, ayaw ho namin.
Ano yan, Mr. President? It will be a process. For example, okay, we know, if you don't build this road, ito yung gastos mo, ito yung gasolinan mo, ito yung oras mo.
We understand that,
Okay?
but what
So
if they don't
it's
agree?
going to cost. If the local community doesn't want it, then the national government will not force it on them.
That's what I want to hear.
That's precisely the point.
Yeah.
Okay?
So where will you put that in? If the local community does not want it,
That's why we have these
National.
miscellaneous provisions too.
where is it
But-
at? Where's that, Mr. President?
No. That's why I'm saying after that's during the consultation process. Huh?
Where will you put that in? If the national government,
The implement shall conduct public consultation or dialogue with all potential stakeholders, including the users, in all stages of the PPP project.
yes,
And then you have, so how will it be done? For example, I go to a community, I tell them, okay,
they have to agree, right?
correct,
Okay.
correct. Okay, now, you're spending this much on your gasoline, your time, this is your cost. If I build this road, this will be your savings, but you will have to pay this fee, a toll fee, for example. So, mas mura sa'yo to.
Who makes the decision?
No, they will have a public consultation.
Yes, and
And then if the public,
if they don't agree, that's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
if
What
they
if
don't
they don't
agree, then the national government cannot pursue the project. Will not be able to pursue.
I like that, Mr.
Yes.
President. Yeah.
Yeah, I already mentioned.
And that applies to all projects? No national project can proceed unless approved
In
by...
theory, Mr. President, if the local community does not want that project, that's their call. There's nothing that the government can do, the national government.
When you say local community,
Yes.
who exactly do you refer to? The Sangguniang, the governor, the mayor?
They would be the representatives, but we are not limiting the consultation process. But having said that, Mr. President, in many instances, the local community will accept this project, as I mentioned, if it is properly presented. For example, this will be your savings if we do it this way. Okay? Now, with regard to the Sasa port, which the gentleman from Cebu keeps on mentioning, I totally agree with the gentleman from Cebu that the Sasa project in Davao City is not needed. And that's why you have a problem there.
I have no problem
Yes.
with that. What I'm just concerned of is the process of approval. You're saying that if the community disagrees, the project cannot proceed. How do we determine the decision of the community? There's always some mechanism. Do we have a referendum? What?
Okay.
You know, Mr. President, that's one thing we don't have in this country. All over the United States, we've been conducting referenda. They can even lower the taxes by initiative.
In California.
California.
So
Not in all states.
That's good
because
enough.
I'm a little concerned
Yeah.
that, in other words, even if there are 100,000 who will in this community, and 990,000, 99,000 would say yes, that will benefit us. If there is one who will oppose, how will the process proceed?
There is a willingness to pay survey also contemplated in the measure, Mr. President. The idea here is to consult the local community as well.
Right.
No? Now, in the case of local PPP projects, as an
Yes.
example lang, it is the Sanggunian who will determine.
That's right.
So it's
That's-
clearer there.
Yes,
Okay.
it's clearer.
It's clearer there. It is the local Sanggunian who will speak for the people as representatives.
Yes.
Here, we also put a provision here toward the end of a joint oversight Congress, of the House and the Senate. No? Not part of the approval process. But frankly speaking, Mr. President, if I had my way, I think the representatives of the people should approve.
Yes.
Okay? In this case, it will be the RDC. But if I had my way, in a parliamentary system, in most cases, the parliament approves the listing of projects.
Isn't it more realistic? Okay, if we really want to give meaning to the local autonomy, other than the RDC, you should have the Sanggunian's consent.
No, your idea is even better, Mr. President. We hold a referendum.
Sorry?
You hold a referendum in that community.
Well, anyway, I don't think that's as a practical matter.
Correct.
You cannot hold a referendum
Correct.
every time there is a proposed PPP
In
project.
more instances than not, Mr. President, they will agree to these projects.
And no, I have no problems with that. What I'm just saying is, what is the mechanism that is in the law to determine
Through the
consent?
RDC. Through the RDC endorsement.
If it's endorsed by the RDC,
It's a go.
it's a law.
For a
No.
national project, yes.
But for the local projects, it has to be approved by the local Sanggunians.
That is correct.
When we say local Sanggunians, do we refer to the municipal council, the provincial
Correct.
board?
Let me explain to you.
Sorry?
If it is a city,
No question, it's the city council.
it's a city council.
Right.
If it's a municipality and the province has jurisdiction over
Yes.
the municipality, first they approve it at the local Sanggunian, the
Yeah.
municipal Sanggunian. It goes for review in the province.
Right.
And then the province approves, and that's a go.
And if the province
So the-
disapproves,
It's a no-go. It's just like the RDC may approve it, but the NEDA board, the president says no. Wala rin yun.
okay,
At the
so
national level, the RDC goes through a process muna in NEDA,
we agree.
the
yes,
secretary, the
understand.
ICC. Okay? Once it's approved at the ICC level, it goes now to the NEDA board, and the president's approval is necessary. If the president says no, then there's no project.
If in the local projects, if the Sangguniang Panglalawigan
Yes.
says yes,
Yes.
can the Sangguniang
The lower?
the lower
In the first, it will not reach the Sangguniang Panlalawigan without
Sangguniang Bayan.
approval of the Sangguniang Bayan.
yeah.
It
The
will not
Sangguniang-
even reach the
Right.
Sangguniang Panlalawigan.
if the Sangguniang Bayan disapproves it, it can no longer be brought to the Sangguniang
Correct.
Pangalawigan?
Correct. Only if it's approved, then there's a review process.
Okay.
Yeah, but Mr. President, what I was talking here is about the oppressiveness of national projects
Correct.
imposed on local.
Correct.
So
Correct.
maybe we
Correct.
can discuss that tomorrow. Mr. President, I accepted an 8 o'clock appointment and I'm running late. May I suspend my questioning and get through with this tomorrow?
Yeah, no problem.
I
Mr.
understand
President.
Senator Villar has made reservations also to
All right.
propound questions on the floor.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So, Majority Leader,
As intimated by the two gentlemen, Mr. President, we will continue our interpellations tomorrow. We suspend, move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 3035. So move.
so suspended.
Suspend for 1 minute, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
Mr. President, ready to resume?
Session is resumed.
Seems there are no more. There's no more business to debate upon, Mr. President. So I move that we adjourn session till tomorrow, February 2 at 3 o'clock p.m.
Session is adjourned until February 2, Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.